Say, will somebody please pass the ketchup?
This is a tasty burger.
I'll take a Vornese burger and a side of Jason fingers.
Don't skimp on the meat. I got a real good eye for prime meat.
Welcome to Hamburgers and Horror, the home of meat, monsters, and movies worth fighting over. I'm Noah Hook, and today I'm very excited to present the very first H&H Debate. In this discussion-based game, three competitors will debate with each other over a variety of questions with the goal of proving that their answer is the best. These questions will usually be based around horror, but could range into hamburgers or general cinema at any point. Here to help me judge the debates today is none other than Josh from Movie Timelines. He's been working on an amazing YouTube channel for, I think, 5 years now, going through movie franchises and figuring out the continuity and quality of them. Yeah, Josh, you want to tell everyone a little bit about your channel?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it started as judging like the continuity and time frame between movies. So if the movie has a 7-year time gap in between entries to try and figure out what makes sense, and you find movies that jump like 15 years, and yet the movie came out like the year after. So things start to get a little bit hairy, and it's just a matter of figuring out how that all works.
Yeah, it's a really awesome channel, and Josh has really built up an awesome community of people around it, which I think is just really incredible. So yeah, congratulations on that as well.
I was about to say, yeah, it's been a fun little side effect of it. It's like having this like cool group of people that all like to talk horror movies. It's fun.
Awesome. Yes, and then today, if me and Josh can't decide on a winner in a debate, I also have my fiance Kim here to break those ties. Kim doesn't really watch a ton of horror movies. She won't be super knowledgeable, so that's why I think she'll be a good objective voice on who provided the best argument. Kim, thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
Time to bring in the fighters. First, we have my patron Lee, reigning from North Dakota, and he is responsible for some of the most fun videos I've reviewed for the channel, such as From Beyond and Banshee Chapter. Yeah, thank you so much for being here, Lee.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me on. Yeah.
And then, of course, we have Dan, otherwise known as the Four Mood Group. He has been a great friend of the channel from the very beginning, and he is also my chess buddy.
Yeah, thanks, Noah. Thanks for inviting me to participate. This is going to be fun.
Last but not least, we have Victor from Horror Movie Syllabus, who some of you will probably recognize from another video we did together, but he's also got a really fun YouTube channel where he's broken down the horror genre into a bunch of subgenres and is looking at them one at a time. Yeah, Victor, thank you for being here, and do you want to talk about your channel a little bit?
Sure. Thanks, Noah. Yeah, thanks for having me here. The horror movie syllabus is basically what you described. It's 100 different subgenres, and we take 3 movies from each subgenre. We rank them undergraduate, graduate, and postgraduate level in increasing order of something, and it's usually something different every video. And we just kind of explore what that subgenre is. And the whole fun part is that this 100 subgenre syllabus is something for everybody to fill out. It's available on the Horror Movie Syllabus website, horrormoviesyllabus.com. You can download it and you can fill it out yourself. The catch is you can only use a movie once, so it becomes something of a puzzle. So if you're a horror fan, check it out and see if you can fit in what winds up being 300 different movies into this chart. And slight spoiler alert, hopefully this summer we're going to do a supplement with an additional 100 subgenres, and they're going to be ridiculously myopic.
Awesome. I'm excited to see it. Yeah, thank you all for being here today. Most of you have been either involved or have been following my channel from its very beginning, so I appreciate you all so much. And yeah, I'll break down the game real quick. Basically, there will be 13 total points that you'll be fighting over. We may not get to all of them if someone's really dominating the game. I guess we'll wait and see. But we'll start with 3 rounds of debates with questions that I presented you guys beforehand, so you've had time to research and prepare. And then after those 3 rounds, the 2 players with the most points will move on to the speed round. And those will be questions that you do not know, and those will be kind of rapid fire, and they'll be in a shorter length of time. So it'll kind of wrap up kind of quickly near the end there. But yeah, do you guys have any questions about that before we jump in? Okay, Awesome. And to be clear, Josh, Kim, and I will primarily be deciding winners based on your arguments. So we won't just be picking the answers that we personally agree with best, but it'll be about the arguments you present. And for the first 3 debate rounds, it'll be kind of a 1-minute opener about your choice, and then we'll break into like a longer debate format. Round number 1, who is the greatest horror director of all time? Dan, we'll start with you.
Well, I think there's a few different ways one can answer this question. Because what does greatness even mean, right? So I'm going to go George Romero. And my feeling on greatness here is influence on basically everything. I think if you look at George Romero's, basically the big 3 zombie movies, if you want to start there, these are 3 individually fantastic horror movies: Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead. But beyond that, he pretty much changed what everybody thinks of as a zombie from what the old voodoo idea was to this other thing, this plague zombie, which really infuses culture beyond really just movies even. So people can say zombie and they're knowing exactly what you're talking about, and really from this model that he came up with. So I think his influence is really, really big that way. Like I say, if you want to go with great movies, go with those 3 also, because, those are amazing movies in and of themselves. Day of the Dead is one of the greatest practical effects movies ever made. And speaking of Day of the Dead, I would also tap Tom Savini on this, because Tom Savini's career started working with George Romero. So if you want to kind of bring that through to how much he influenced the horror genre, you have Tom Savini starting with George Romero, going into then Friday the 13th, which you could say really was more influential with special effects. Then you have the entire slasher genre. You can't tie it directly to Savini or Romero really, but I just, you start to look at the sort of the tree and the branches, and you've got a lot of Romero at that root. To me, that's greatness. I think you could talk about other directors, and I know we will today. And I think there's a lot of great answers to this question, but for me, I'm going to go with and defend Romero as the answer.
Awesome. Thank you. Lee, do you want to go next?
Okay. So Wonder Kid Don Coscarelli just finished his 2nd movie before he was even 22 years old. So Reggie Bannister, one of his good friends, who's also an actor, said, "When wicked way this come? I just read this book. You need to make a movie out of this." So Don Coscarelli goes and looks at it, and he's going to make a horror movie out of it, but then realizes that Disney has already got rights to the book. So he decides to go with one of his dreams he had. He was being chased by little spheroids. And then the rest is history. So Don Coscarelli is my pick for best director of all time. So with the Phantasm that he created a whole genre. I can't even explain the first movie. People don't, it doesn't seem like it should work, but it works perfectly. And then with the 3 other ones, he was able to create like different types of movies. He was able to add to it and go in new directions and create. The second one was a hunting movie, almost like influenced Supernatural, basically. And the third one was almost a zombie movie in the way it was presented. And also there's a fantastic scene where they had the car like jump. There was a great stunt in that. You just have to watch it for that. He also went on. The problem is that he did not like studio influence, so he never got his movies made the way he wanted to. In fact, Phantasm 3, they did not even release that other than 2 theaters in the United States. And then it was later done direct to video because he didn't like the Universal's trying to influence him on it. So he went on and did his own thing, and not only did he create like 4 different worlds, he created the Phantasm, the Beastmaster, he created the John Dies at the End series, and also the Bubba Hotep series, so which are all 4 distinct different genres. And with that, so it's just amazing to see what he did. And he always kept to his vision. Like he was asked to adapt or like sign over the Phantasm rights in the mid-2000s, but he refused. He says, "I am not going to do this. This is my own thing," and to his detriment almost, because he couldn't even raise enough money for a 4th movie. He could only do $650,000 for Phantasm 4. But hopefully, I don't know if the Phantasm movies will go on because Angus Scrimm, of course, passed away in 2016. But I do know he's working on a sequel possibly to Bubba Hotep, or a prequel, whatever you want to call it. But what could have been, he might have been more known, but I still think he's influenced cinema so much just with his little bit of movies that he did. And that's my choice.
Awesome. Thank you, Lee. And Victor, how about your choice?
So my choice for best horror director was the legendary Wes Craven. And the first reason is obvious because of his name recognition. Wes Craven is widely considered one of the greatest horror directors of all time. If you look at lists of great horror directors, he's always going to be at or near the top of those lists. But it goes even further than that, because I think beyond horror fans, even the general public, the civilians, if you will recognize the name Wes Craven. They might call him Wes Carpenter, but they'll recognize the name, and they've heard of it. That's how influential and important of a director he is, or was. Unfortunately, he's passed away too. But the other reason why I picked Wes Craven over, say, somebody like John Carpenter, who's similarly very famous, is that Wes Craven's the only horror director who has made a genre redefining film in 3 separate decades, and might have even had a fourth, but I'll get to that. In the 1970s, he had The Last House on the Left, which was a seminal work in the revenge subgenre and set the tone for the brutal 70s. And of course, in the 80s, he had Nightmare on Elm Street, which was the rubber reality linchpin or foundational piece, and redefined the subgenre of slasher films. And then he redefined the slasher subgenre again with Scream in the 90s, single-handedly saving the horror genre as a whole, which was going in the toilet. And I argue that in the 2000s, had the Weinsteins not messed with Cursed, he would have redefined the werewolf subgenres too. So there's no other horror director that has had that much influence over that many different aspects of horror across 40 years. It's such a large, widespread amount of time to have that much influence. There are very few directors, forget about horror directors, there's very few directors, period, that have that much influential work over that broad of a period of time. It's something that should be recognized, something that should be celebrated, and that's why he's my choice.
All right. Frick is here to watch as well. And yeah, basically now I'm gonna let you three go at it. I'm gonna set like a 20-minute alarm. It's okay if we go a bit past that, but yeah, just feel free to cut each other off, argue, be semi-cordial, but debate.
How much credit can you give for influence when most of what Scream influenced was actually not good? Like, I'm not saying that it wasn't a big deal that he made Scream and saved the genre, because he did, even for me. Like, I remember seeing Scream and, it turned me around a little bit on horror. But I will say, to say what Stephen Bell, had said in one of Josh's videos about Scream, for better or for worse, everything after Scream really is influenced by Scream. I would say a lot of it's for the worse. I can't think of a lot of really Screamish videos or movies that make me say, thank goodness for Wes Craven and Scream, except, like you say, one of the things that's great about it is a lot more money went into the horror production, and so a lot of quality movies came out. But I will say, if you look at zombie movies, say if you're thinking about George Romero, maybe instead, a lot of zombie movies are fantastic that are influenced directly by Romero. You have Return of the Living Dead, you have Shaun of the Dead, you have, Reanimator wouldn't look just like that. You wouldn't adapt the Reanimator story from Lovecraft if it wasn't for what Romero's work already looked like. I just think that you have a lot more quality influence perhaps from Romero, if not the volume. So that's my point on that.
I would actually counter that with Romero does have the volume for better or for very much worse. As we all know, the zombie subgenre has been littered with god-awful movies. Now, you just highlighted some great ones, and I'm not going to argue. Shaun of the Dead in particular, we all know how great Shaun of the Dead is, right? We all know this. Right, Josh? We all know.
Well, let's just forget about the bad zombie movies, though. Come on.
but then we have to forget about the bad Scream knockoffs, too. But I would contend that the Scream knockoffs are fun.
What are the good ones, though?
Well, again, we're going to talk about a matter of opinion here, right? But I'll throw it out, I Know What You Did Last Summer. I'll throw out Valentine. I'll throw out Urban Legend. There's... And again, opinions may vary, mileage may vary on this. I'll be honest, I'm a well-known slasher lover, so I'm much more forgiving. Josh just did a video about Scream knockoffs, and I thought all the ones that I hadn't seen looked fantastic. So,
Oh, I watch all of those. But I like bad movies
exactly.
too, though. And I think that's one reason why I can delve so deep into bad zombie movies. I'm looking at Noah's shirt there, the basket movies. Now, I think those are good movies, but they are weird, and so you get some bad going on in that area. So, I know Josh also likes some sort of good bad movies, if you want to call them that. And yeah, there's no doubt that some of those bad slasher movies are worth watching. And some of the bad zombie movies, honestly, probably aren't worth watching. To hurt my own point, but I think that I don't know.
Well, to be fair, I mean, with zombie movies, I'm to the point where I rarely watch a zombie movie because it's all been done before. It's all diminishing returns to me. And I always feel like with both of your directors, they are great and they're great influencers, but I always felt like Wes Craven, every genre he did, it always got worse and worse and worse. It's like he kept doing the same formulatic. Same with Romero. Sometimes they got a little worse. Coscarelli, on the other hand, he almost got better because he liked to do his own cinematography. That got better. He liked to do his own stunts. That got better. And then with Beastmaster, of course, that's a classic, but it's totally different. But John dies at the end. Like he took like an internet, like this was trend setting. He took an internet book and he created a movie out of that. Of course, probably without Paul Giamatti, he probably never done it, but that was what helped finance that. They didn't publish the book until after he signed over for the script. So he started writing the script for it. So, I mean, he literally influenced a whole genre, a book. Jason, I got his name, Jason Pargin. He actually has 6 books under his name. Would never have happened, and they've all were bestsellers. So he's influenced like the fantasy horror. And then with Bubba Hotep, he went into comedy and almost set a standard for comedic movies after that. So I don't really see it. There are dips. Phantasm 4, I can't defend. It's a lot of retread and a lot of movies, but that's the only really bad one that he directed that in my eyes. So
let me respond to that. So you pointed out, this will actually kind of bolster Dan's argument as well as my own, but you pointed out that both Craven and Romero, once they've made their movies and their subgenres, the quality of the movies in that subgenre tend to drop off. And I would say that's evidence of them being the pinnacle of those subgenres. They set that standard and people can't match up to the standard. I think that just reinforces their greatness. If we were going to discuss who's the most improved horror director, I'll give it to Coscarelli, sure, no problem, but we're talking about the best. And if we're talking about the best, we're talking about the people that other people haven't been able to match yet. And I'll concede that also applies to Romero as well as it does to Craven. But that's my counterpoint.
Well, I'm going to toot an unrelated director's horn here because it's almost my job, and to sort of just go down, I guess, to get Don Coscarelli down a little bit, if we're going to say a guy who hits all the genres masterfully, I gotta go. John Carpenter is way better than Coscarelli at that. We could talk about John Carpenter as the best horror director of all time, and I may have chosen him, but really only a fraction of his movies are horror. But he's done horror, he's done sci-fi, he does so much different stuff. All of what Carpenter does to a certain point in his career is fantastic. After that, let's not talk about it. But, I just, for me, if you're going to say the best thing about a director or what makes him great is hitting the different genres, I would then go Carpenter. I wouldn't go Coscarelli, although I love Phantasm and I love Beastmaster. Just saying.
Mark,
I do love Beastmaster too.
Yes.
It's funny, Dan, you bring up Carpenter because I remember when we were originally discussing this, you were going to pick Carpenter, and I forgot that you switched. So on my notes here, I wrote down counterpoints for Carpenter, and one of the counterpoints I had is what you just brought up, which is he does a lot more than just horror, and we're talking about the best horror director, and he goes into different subgenres, different genres, and so while I think that's great, it doesn't make him the best horror director. And Coscarelli, you could make the argument too, although I'll concede that it doesn't hold up as well for Coscarelli, because when you say, for example, Coscarelli doing comedy, he's doing horror comedy, right? He'll do horror action, and so I'll give Lee that he when we're talking about Coscarelli working different genres, it's really on my channel we would call them subgenres, right? We'd call it
Right.
a horror comedy and a horror action, things like that. I can't argue that Coscarelli has that versatility, but I will point out that once again, when you're talking about horror like icon directors, Coscarelli doesn't usually make the list. And in fact, Romero will sometimes make the list, but it's usually below Craven. Now, that's, of course, other people's random lists. That's not what we're talking about here. But I do think that public opinion matters. And that's going to bite me in the ass when we talk about the best movie of 2021. But I will say that public opinion does matter on these issues.
To an extent. If you're just going from box office success of movies, does that mean that X, Y, or Z movie is better because it's made way more money than the next movie? No one's going to argue that, or heavens, don't look at record sales to argue great music. But your point is taken. I think it's courageous to argue Coscarelli for a lot of reasons. Maybe he's not as versatile as another director, but I don't think that's the strength of the argument, because we're talking about horror directors. I would even say, not to help his argument, not to help your argument, Lee, but Beastmaster, you almost could paint that as kind of a horror fantasy movie. If you look at those kind of weird, rubbery creatures that kind of suck you and your fluid falls off, and it's just
his horror experience does help him with the Beastmaster. I mean, like everyone, like a lot of directors go from horror into like fantasy. I mean, Peter Jackson is a perfect example, or Guillermo del Toro. They're all. Wait,
did you say Peter Jackson?
Yeah.
My little earth.
I think Dan's familiar with Peter Jackson.
Yeah, well, I mean, yes.
I just finally saw Bad Taste, but that's a tangent. So, a few months ago, No, but with Coscarelli, he did do other movies. I mean, his first two movies were actually more dramas. And he did, at 20 years old, he was the youngest director. He did everything. He wrote it, directed, did everything. Cinematography even. And he had a young, not really a young Angus Scrimm, but he was amazing in it if you ever get to see Jim, the World's Greatest. So he has done other dramas, but that was more of a family drama. And then he did another one after that had Reggie Bannister and Michael Baldwin. So, and then he did one with Lance Hendricks in the late 80s, was more a survival, but it wasn't counted as a horror movie, really. It's just like Lance Hendricks teaches some young kids, there's a gang chasing after him, and it's not really horror, so I didn't think I would include it. So he's done other things, and he's excelled at them, but he got better, it seemed, each time. I mean, Phantasm, though, was still the pinnacle, but he did everything for that. Like, it was a shoestring budget, and finally Universal got in. And then the second one, that's the problem. You can never go, like, I think video sales, I don't know, they're probably a little bit, but Coscarelli, because like I said, his third movie didn't even get distributed. It was two theaters, and they were the biggest for 2 weeks. That's all that Universal released Phantasm 3 to.
Man, so. Josh was in more theaters. Josh's movie was in more theaters than that, which I say as a compliment to Josh. Happy anniversary to your movie, Josh.
Thank you.
So actually, I'm gonna go on Wes Craven here. I'm gonna say, how much credit do we want to give him for the Scream movies, given that he didn't write them, and also, how much credit are we giving Wes Craven for the Nightmare on Elm Street series, when I will tell you that the first Nightmare movie is amazing. And anybody who says it's not, we don't have to talk. But the rest of those movies, for the vast majority of the rest of the movies, Wes Craven was not involved. And it is really, if it was only one movie, it would not have created a phenomenon like it did. And yes, you give credit to influence, like we've been doing in this conversation. So his influence is great. But those other movies, people think of Dream Warriors, they think of the later Freddy that gets a little more comical, and Freddy becomes a cultural icon. I think more so because of the Freddy that is invented by people after Wes Craven's invention. It almost hurts me to say. I'm about to say, how much credit do we give Wes Craven for that? You want to go to the 70s, and Hills Have Eyes, and you have those revenge movies as well. I'll give him the 70s. I'm not so sure I'm giving him the 80s and slasher movies, and I'm not so sure about Scream and how much Scream is really his personal responsibility.
So many counterpoints. Let me start with Freddy, because you pointed out that Dream Warriors is what establishes Funny Freddy. That was written by Wes Craven. He wrote the screenplay for that. So he is responsible for what becomes Funny Freddy. He's the one who initiates that. And also, let's not sleep on Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which is brilliant. Yeah. And I'll fight anybody who says otherwise.
No, I like that, probably the best of them. Yeah, actually.
No.
Yeah, it's one of my
I said
favorites,
the vast
too.
majority, because how many movies are there? 45? I mean...
But here's the thing: we're not talking about best horror writer. We're talking about best horror director. Right?
I'm just saying how much credit does he get for Scream?
Right.
Right.
But by that same argument, how much credit does Romero get for the zombie genre, and how much of it goes to Tom Savini? Right. And I'll give that credit to Romero, generally speaking. But if we're gonna talk about teamwork, Romero and Savini, just like Kevin Williamson and Wes Craven, created art together, and I think that collaboration is something to be celebrated. Yeah. I think that the fact that Craven was able to work with people and kind of concede some of that writing talent to somebody else, as opposed to say somebody like George Lucas, who could maybe benefit from that, I think is something to be credited. I think that's part of what makes you a great director, is knowing when to collaborate with other people. Not to take anything away from Coscarelli, who's kept a strong vision. I know Lee made that point earlier, and I think it's a fair point, but I don't think that it's something. I think that's kind of just an apples and oranges, or what is your flavor? I think that collaboration is a great thing to celebrate. I think that somebody with a strong singular vision is also a great thing to celebrate. I think Dan, you pointed out, Craven's done both. In the 70s, he's had his own singular vision, and then in the 80s and 90s, he evolved and was becoming more of a collaborative effort. Now, for better or for worse, if you want to talk about where Freddy went wrong, that doesn't hang on Craven, that hangs on Robert Shea, right? I mean, Bob Shea is the one who milked that cow dry, and Craven is the one who tried to bring it back with New Nightmare. So again, Craven's doing the Lord's work, in my opinion, on that one.
Conceded. No, you're right. And I think I guess that's what direction is, really, right? It's just sort of like directing all the pieces, and that's why we're getting back to that question: is the best horror director, as you say. So,
because I would concede, is Wes Craven as influential, or is Nightmare on Elm Street influential without Robert Englund? Probably not, right?
Well,
so I'll concede that.
Yeah, good point.
Of course, I can also make the same point is Phantasm as influential without Angus Scrimm.
Angus Scrimm.
We can do this all day long.
Reggie Bannister. I mean, you can't say they're all kind of iconic, but they're. And
I brought Tom Savini myself, so good use of my own ammunition against me. But come on, Tom Savini. I love Tom Savini.
Oh, I do too. I mean, Friday the 13th is one of my favorites, and that doesn't even exist without Tom Savini. So I'm right there with you on it. Yeah. But we're not talking about best special effects artists, although that would be a fun debate in the future. No, I'm just going to throw that out there.
Yeah, those are good ideas.
Because you can on the list.
Cool.
Awesome. Yeah, we got about 4 minutes left, so you guys want to make your final arguments.
Okay, I'll actually go ahead and start. So one thing that Lee had brought up about Coscarelli was the idea that having the different genres, working in the different genres, was a benefit, and I don't disagree with that. But Phantasm, of course, being his most seminal work, I don't think anybody would debate that. And I will concede that Phantasm is an incredible portrayal of what a nightmare looks like. It's maybe one of, if not the best portrayal of what a nightmare looks like. But when I was a kid, Phantasm didn't give me nightmares, but A Nightmare on Elm Street did. When that movie came out, it actually gave me nightmares. That actually scared me. So getting back to the idea of best horror director, Wes Craven is the one that has more consistently scared me. Phantasm's an amazing movie. Bubba Hotep's incredible. But in terms of horror, in terms of true terrifying me, one of the few movies to give me nightmares was Nightmare on Elm Street. Now, granted, I was 9, but still, that was the thing about Wes Craven, is that by and large, his movies are still interested in scaring you. Even Scream, which is funny and meta, still scary. It still delivers on the scares and the tension. So Wes Craven, who admittedly, when you look at his resume, all horror, with the exception of Music of the Heart, which is just horrible. So it kind of still counts. But Wes Craven has focused on horror and scaring you, and that's what makes him a master of horror and makes him the best horror director.
So what makes you more scared, speaking of horror, than getting eaten alive? Okay, so this is what Romero brought to the zombie genre, this cannibalism idea. That's really what zombies are now, is they eat you. That wasn't like that before. And I think that's what makes this horror so pervasive, really beyond, horror movies to a certain degree. It kind of gets at that real primal fear in us, like what Jaws so successfully taps into as well. And it became a cultural thing to where, you have more than just horror with Romero. I think much more so than Coscarelli and Craven. He's digging into cultural issues, political statement issues with his movies. He doesn't always admit to it. Sometimes he doesn't have to admit to it. That's what he's dealing with there throughout his movies. What does it mean to us to have these desires even after perhaps you're undead? And let's not get into that now because we're past the debate format area, but I think if you look at influence, greatness for me is influence. It's not just movies with Romero. It's more than that. He's incorporated culture into his movies, and then it comes back out and influences culture in a greater way. And yes, people know who Wes Carpenter is, but he's not Wes Carpenter.
Okay, with Don Coscarelli and the Phantasm, which is the iconic, it did give me nightmares. Actually, the trailer gave me nightmares when I was like 6 years old. I'm actually watching Star Wars going there, and the trailer had the Phantasm. When you see the Thin Man coming down the hallway, that gives you nightmares. And then, to have dreams, and when they come up and arms come around you, when you think you're in bed and you're safe, or when you're safe in your home, it comes to some intrusion, and with that, he even goes into that. So he does iconic with some of that, and he does mess with dreams. And he plus with other one, John Dies at the End, there's some entity in another dimension that's super scary too, that's coming over to control people and take over this world and other worlds. So there is some scare factor, even with some of the humor. It still is fairly scary, the concepts and everything like that out of the corner of the eye, those little shadows you see, like in John Dies at the End, they're real and they're coming after you. They're spider things. So that's why I agree. I mean, he is iconic and he has influence more than you would think. I mean, I don't think Supernatural would have happened without Phantasm 2, because it's literally a template for that show. Like the hunters, the hunted becomes the hunters, things like that. So, I mean, there's other influences that you could say, like with the books for the John Dies at the End and the Bubba Hotep. I mean, it pretty much influenced a lot of the horror comedies that came a little bit afterwards. And of course, put Bruce Campbell even farther into the stratosphere as far as influence for what he did to horror, Bruce Campbell. So that's all I have on that. So.
Awesome. Great job, guys. I think that was really solid. I think it was a lot closer than I was initially expecting it to be. Josh, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought it was a round of hearty debates. It's funny because my personal pick was not chosen, but I love all three of these directors because you will not know how much I love Coscarelli. But so it was fun hearing the pluses and minuses. But in my opinion, I feel as if I picked a winner.
I'm thinking we may agree, but yeah, go ahead and give your vote out.
I thought that there was a lot of really good back and forth here. You guys all made very good cases. But in my opinion, the person that made the clearest argument for somebody being the best director overall was Victor with Wes Craven.
Yes, I think I will agree with that as well. I think Victor had like the most things to defend, and I think he did a great job of combating those and making the point of Wes Craven sticking with horror for the most part and really having those like multiple moments throughout decades of time like that were very like influential films.
It's funny because I wanted to fight for you for a minute, Victor, because when people were talking about like giving credit to Robert Englund for its success and everything like that, I wanted to kind of be like, yes, but who's getting that performance out of him? The director.
I was just glad that Lee brought up Supernatural like at the very end because I was like, oh, I love that show.
Honestly, I think I would vote for Wes Craven. So what happened was I chose John Carpenter. Like Noah gave us the opportunity to whoever spoke out first would have that choice. So I come out John Carpenter, like no problem. Lee said Don Coscarelli, and then, you know, Victor in his I'll get to it later way, he's not really he doesn't use Instagram as much as we do. So like he comes on and says Wes Craven. I'm like, oh my Lord, how did I not say Wes Craven? So then I switched to Romero because I started to have to make up an argument in my head. Like, well, Carpenter only really had so many great horror movies. So then I'm like, I have to change my answer to really
on my notes.
Yeah. So that's why I went with Romero. But I think the answer is Wes Craven. So, you know.
It's funny because I was going to pick Carpenter, but of course you had already jumped on it.
Yeah. Well.
And, you know, I can't pick him too. And so I'm like, well, Craven's the next logical step.
Josh, who is your favorite?
Carpenter.
It's Dustin Ferguson.
It honestly, it goes beyond, because the question is who is the best horror director,
right? And
I still think it's Carpenter, because see, in my mind, when you take and again I'm going off on a tangent here, when you take that question, who is the best horror director, in my mind it doesn't so much encapsulate who has the most great horror movies,
right,
but honestly, which director is versatile enough that when they do make a horror movie, even if it's a director that's not known for horror movies, but when they make a horror movie, is it like the best horror movie? Like if somebody's only horror movie that they ever made is the best horror movie in existence, then it's like, okay, that guy's the best horror director.
Right.
So Kubrick's the best horror director then.
Kubrick could be one of them.
Or Spielberg, possibly, yeah.
I will give this to Josh, is that there's no such thing as Craven-esque, but there is Carpenter-esque.
Yes.
And that would have been my argument if I was defending Carpenter. That's what I would have been saying.
There's no Coscarelli-esque? What?
well, and here's the argument. Lee, if I were you, this argument I would have made is there is no Coscarelli because nobody can do what he does.
Yeah, I guess I didn't know.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing about a debate. I mean, I was foreseeing the arguments against Carpenter, and you know, Josh is right. It's not most prolific. That wasn't what we were saying. If it was most prolific, then Craven is still a good answer. And then there are other, you know, terrible directors who have 200 horror movies. Maybe that doesn't make them good, but they're maybe prolific, right?
Every single one of those answers, guys, was a good answer. Romero is a great answer. Craven is a great answer. Coscarelli is a great. They're all great answers. So
that's what makes it fun. Is there's really not a loser in it.
Yeah. There was no wrong answer there. I just felt like Victor portrayed his side of things, and it was kind of what Noah said. It was kind of, you got attacked. Like Craven kind of got attacked the most, but you had very good thought out comebacks to each of those resistance points. So.
Oh, and all of my attacks were half-hearted on Craven. I'll be honest.
It's a debate.
Yeah, it's hard to be like criticizing the Coscarelli, and it's like, God damn it, like I don't want to criticize this, but you know, you have to like.
And fantastic. That metal spheroid ball that did scare me when I was a kid. That was weird, and it's so small it could come around any corner. You know, like I did not like that in a good way. You know, it really unsettled me when I was a kid, for sure.
I also just want to say that if I was in the position of debating Victor on this, I would have just said, okay, Victor, that's a good point. Wes Craven, best horror director. My retaliation to you is my soul to take.
I was waiting for it. and here was my counter argument for that is we're not talking about an immaculate horror director, because you'd be hard pressed to name an immaculate horror director. I mean, it'd be hard pressed to name immaculate directors. Period. Even James Cameron did Piranha 2. Everybody has entitled to one clunker.
And I'm sitting here, I hope nobody mentions Phantasm 4. I don't want to defend Phantasm 4. I don't want to defend it, no.
Well, I left out a whole bunch of Romero's movies, y'all.
Yeah. I'll take Phantasm 4 over Survival of the Dead or Deadly Friend any day of the week, though.
Yeah.
Yes.
Actually, that was something I forgot to say to Dan, was when he said, he named off the Holy Trilogy, and then I'm like, but he also did Survival of the Dead.
Survival of the Dead is so bad. I almost said that when Lee said Phantasm 4. I'm like, it's not as bad as Survival of the Dead, brother.
I guess I forgot to bring up.
It hurt me to watch Survival of the Dead. It really hurt me.
I was really kind of worried about people mentioning Music from the Heart, though. I was formulating my argument of that it's a horror film because.
So Victor, that is 2 points for you.
Yeah.
Nice. So I guess we'll move on to round 2 now. What is the scariest dog in a horror movie? Lee, we'll start with you this time.
So there was a little book made by Stephen King. He doesn't remember writing. Supposedly, it's called Cujo, and my submission is Cujo from the movie Cujo. He's a Saint Bernard. He's just a big, massive dog. But I don't know if you know anything about Saint Bernards. They're not very vicious. So this dog, they go and gets bitten by rabies, and then slowly you can see it devolving into this just massive creature, monster almost. And the practical effects, everything is practical about this dog. They put like cream on him and foam coming out. And it was just amazing to look at the way he devolved into this monster. Now, of all of the dogs, this probably has one of the greatest jump scares ever. I think about half an hour in, when they're sitting at the car and she's trying to roll up the window, suddenly Cujo comes out and just almost crashes through the window right there. And you don't realize how hard it is to make a Saint Bernard do that, because even the trainer on the film, Miller, he said that you don't want to use Saint Bernards. They're hard to train. So this was an accomplishment just to make this dog look scary. And when you look at all the blood coming off of him, off of his mouth, off of his body, and the way he would look at people, it just gave me nightmares as a kid. For some reason, my parents thought that my 8-year-old self could watch this movie. There was just I think it was R, but I could watch, and it just had dreams. In fact, it made people hate Saint Bernards. The trainer Miller actually got letters written to him by the actual trainer, or the Saint Bernard, breeding society, saying, hey, we don't appreciate you putting these people into a bad light. He later went on to do the Beethoven movies, so he got redemption for that. So, but it's just to see him slowly devolve, and like just the evilness you start seeing in him, but animal evilness, something that you could actually see happen to a dog. I don't know if you see dogs when they go wild, they can just go that way and make you fearful of like even just a normal object. What Stephen King did really good in a lot of his early novels is taking something normal and turning it into something totally evil. So, and when he saw the end at the Cujo, and of course, he was almost undead, unstoppable at the end, because he got shot how many times and he still kept coming. He kept waking up and coming back. So that would be my thought on the most evil dog would be Cujo.
All right, Victor?
Okay, so the scariest dog in horror that I selected was what is commonly referred to as the demon dogs from A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge. And the reason why I picked these dogs is, well, you just look at them. Basically, they are dogs, and I think Rottweilers, maybe Dobermans, but I think Rottweilers with like baby faces, like human baby faces for faces. And so my strongest point is look at them. They are absolutely, positively disturbing. It's the movie's called A Nightmare on Elm Street, and they took one of the most nightmarish things I could think of, or never would have thought of, frankly, and put it on the screen to give me nightmares. And that is to take one, if you think about horror as transgressive, this is something that's completely horrifying, because you take one of the most wonderful things in the world, a dog, and one of the worst things in the world, a baby, and you combine the two of them into something that is just awful. I love that the movie only has them for a brief amount of time, but they make such an impression, so much of an impression that I think NECA even did like a toy of them. And they don't actually do anything. They just appear to unsettle you. They don't attack. They don't do anything, which to me makes them all the scarier. I would liken it to Bruce the Shark in Jaws. He's at his scariest when you can just see him a little bit and he's not actually doing anything yet. And you're just kind of wondering, like, when is something going to happen? What is going to happen? Why do these dogs let the girl pass? All of that uncertainty and unknown aspect of them just makes them that much more unsettling. But at the end of the day, look at them. They are so freaky.
Awesome. All right, Dan?
Well, I'm going to say Thing Dog. And what the Thing Dog is a husky, kind of. In John Carpenter's The Thing, you have what seems a lovely, soft, cuddly husky, starting out the movie seeking shelter. We don't know why. Turns out he's terrifying. I'll do whatever combination of other alien races and other earthbound races, and it's a absolutely terrifying creature, and certainly terrifying in that this is a thing that could take over the entire Earth. It's a really nasty organism, whatever it is. So there's your dog that's not so cuddly, and it throws you for a loop in the movie for sure, because that's your first real. You're coming to grips with how much terror and danger is going to be happening in this small enclosed, encampment in Antarctica. So that dog, the way the practical effects, Lee mentioned practical effects for Cujo, which were masterfully done there. You can't get a lot better than Rob Bottin's work with The Thing, and that dog in particular, how it just sort of changes shape and tendrils come out of it. And if you haven't seen it, you have to watch it. I can't really describe it in a way, that to kind of get it across. It doesn't just disturb you. It disturbs and scares and threatens everybody. For me, that works. So I mean, when Noah asked that question, there's no other answer for me than that. There are plenty of terrifying dogs, out there, obviously.
Awesome. I think we got 3 solid choices, and let's begin the debate.
Okay, first
all right. Let me.
Oh, go ahead.
Go. No.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, go. I'll sit back.
Okay. I'll go. I'm gonna attack Dan with the most obvious retort I can think of, which is the Thing dog's not a dog. The Thing.
Well, neither are the demon dogs. They're babies.
No. They're dogs with baby faces.
I mean, have it your way.
Unless you're contending that they're babies with dog
That
bodies.
is
The only
my
person
point.
who has your argument is
Mine is
Lee.
the only dog.
Yeah, Lee can have this argument.
Mine is the only dog. The
Yes.
Thing dog is an alien. The Nightmare Thing dogs, they're not real. Cujo is real. They use 5 dogs or whatever. I don't know how they did it, but that's my argument. I actually have a dog. And he's actually the main character of the movie. I mean, you could argue the actors, but
Yeah, and the demon dogs
Let's
don't do
dig into
anything. No one says who's the most disturbing dog. They're pretty disturbing, but I'm not scared of those things. I would be if they bit somebody, like bite a character in the movie. Make me see the Rottweiler nature through baby teeth. I mean, I'd be interested to see that. Give me some baby attack. You're right, babies are terrible.
I think they're scarier for
Terrible
not
baby
biting.
horror.
I think they're scarier for not biting. I think that it's implying a certain intelligence or agenda that is unseen and unknown. There's no movie explanation for what these things are, why they exist, what they're going to do. Now, apparently I did a little research on it, and they maybe are based on this Japanese lore of these human-faced dogs. I can't remember the name of it. It was something in Japanese, and I can't remember the name of it. And so maybe it comes from that Japanese lore, maybe it doesn't. And I think that's fascinating. I think that not having the origin of it is better. And this is actually something that would benefit Dan's argument as well, is not knowing why something is scary makes it scary. When you try to explain it, we've seen this time and time again in horror movies, the more they try to explain anything, looking at you, Thorn Trilogy, the less scary it gets. The Thing is never really explained other than it's an alien. We don't know what it's there for, why it's doing what it's doing. But the same thing with the Nightmare dogs. Why aren't they doing anything? What is it they're there for? Are they defending Freddy? Why? That mystery is what makes it scary, as opposed to, say, Cujo, which we have a very clear explanation for why he is the way he is. And actually, that would be my counter argument to Lee. He's right. It's the only one that's a dog. And he's also the only one that is cute and lovable for a chunk of the movie. I would actually argue that Cujo's not the scariest dog. He's the most tragic dog. It's actually sad to me to see what happens to Cujo. It breaks my heart because that dog is beautiful and he's so sweet. And then something awful happens to him, something that's a very real thing, which, again, Lee can argue is what makes it scary is the realism of it. But I would also argue that's what makes it sad. And I think of Cujo more as a tragic figure and a victim than I do as a horror dog.
Well, one thing that eats away, if you will, no pun intended, eats away at Cujo's scariness is, while that's realistic, and I can imagine a rabies-infested Saint Bernard being a confront, it's a lot of things that have to happen a certain way for them to get trapped like that. If you have a car that starts, you're done. You drive away from that sucker, and he's not scary anymore because he's in your rearview mirror. The demon dogs are in your dreams. I'll give you that. That's tough. And the thing, go as far away as you want, but in whatever number of hours, the whole Earth's taken over, so you're going to get dogged at some point. Yeah, but Cujo, you have to get trapped in a certain way for even a rabies-infested dog like Cujo to be that much of a threat. And, God bless Dee Wallace and Danny Ventura. They got it across that was a terror. But it's really just a specific, scene setup that makes that dog so scary. Not that it's not scary, because that was the question. It is scary, but for me, I'm less scared by it because it's just so situational. And as for the demon dogs being more, being scary for what they don't do, and to refer to Bruce in Jaws, Victor, come on. If Jaws doesn't eventually do what he does, if Bruce doesn't eventually do it, it would not have been so scary. It is the payoff that makes the initial part of Bruce work so well. I think we all know that. So what would Jaws have been without the Bruce attack scenes? We wouldn't even know, because the movie Jaws would not be something we're talking about 40-something years later. So let's agree to that. I like the argument, but I have to say it's weak.
So, I gotta admit, Dan has put me on my heels a little bit there.
You did it my counter question, so touche, sir.
My counter retort to that is I've said it before, and I'll just say again: look at them. They're dogs with baby faces. They're so freaky. I would say this, and it's kind of piggybacking a little bit off of what Dan was talking about with Cujo, is that to me, the demon dogs in Nightmare on Elm Street 2 might be the scariest thing in the movie. Now, that might speak a little bit more to the quality of the movie than it does the dogs, admittedly so. But when it comes to, say, for example, Thing Dog isn't even the most scary version of the Thing in that movie. The Blair Thing is probably scarier. I always been partial to the chest with the jaws in it, and the spider head. Those things are far scarier to me. So even in its own movie, it's not the scariest thing in its own movie. And I'd also argue that, Thing Dog does kind of feel a little bit of a tragedy too, because part of what makes it the dog when it becomes the monster is other dogs. And so again, while I agree that Thing Dog is scary and freaky and upsetting, the fact that I can see the other dogs being absorbed into it just really distracts me. It makes me sad. Obviously, I'm an animal lover, so Thing Dog bothers me.
Magic and victimization, because obviously the dream dogs are going to win then, because they're not victimizing anybody to. Yeah, but
that sounds like sound logic to me, Dan.
Well, okay, let me ask a question of you guys. Okay, so the Thing Dog, when did that scare you? Was there actually a scary moment that you felt like really scared, other than just dread coming through you? And as far as the Nightmare Dogs, did they actually, was there a scare? So in Cujo, there's actually a jump scare. Cujo jump scared and made you jump out of your seat. So there's an actual scare the dog did in that movie that's iconic almost. I mean,
I'm not prepared to define scary as only jump scare, but I hear what you're saying.
I would definitely disagree.
Yeah.
I think jump scares could be a type of scare, but I just literally Googled horror definition right now: an intense feeling of fear, shock, or disgust. Nothing more disgusting than those demon dogs with their baby faces.
The demon dogs are more disgusting than Thing Dogs.
They're babies, man.
Because that is preposterous.
They're baby faces.
That's preposterous on its face, my friend.
Well, a little bit behind the scenes is that in order to make Cujo look that way, they put egg whites and whipped cream around his face. They actually had problems with the dog because, he kept licking his face. And you see it in a couple scenes where he's licking it off, all his foam. But yeah, that foam is just
Are you
gross.
defending Cujo as horrible because he's delicious?
Well, I'm just saying that the stuff they put on him is horrible.
So if we're going to go victimization, then we have to go in real life. What they did to those dogs, to my understanding, is actually not good. I think the handler was pretty much having to go to the ends of humane treatment to get those shots right. And I'm not denigrating the man's work. I think the movie comes out great. But from the stories that I've heard about Cujo, it's pushing the limits a little bit of how you want to treat animals on set. I'm not using that argument myself. It sounds like Victor wants to bring humane treatment in or something. I don't know. But, you know.
I'm just saying, it does undercut my enjoyment of a horror movie if I know that something was inhumane. That's why. It's not the only reason why I can't deal with Cannibal Holocaust, but it's a good reason.
That's exactly what I thought of when you said that.
I mean, there was a little bit, but I mean, a lot of the things they actually had squeaky toys inside the car. That was to get the scenes where Cujo would jump up on top of it because he's going after a squeak toy and things like that. I don't think there was some, but the way they portrayed it is more backlash. Because these groups were looking at because the way they portrayed the Saint Bernard, it literally cut into sales of actual Saint Bernards. So the breeder associations were actually sending them letters of condemnation, you know. So
to that point though, Cujo jumping on the car, to Dan's earlier point, you know, if you just had exercised good car maintenance, you could have just drove away and escaped Cujo. You can't escape a demon dog unless you don't sleep, and we all know that you can't not sleep. We've seen the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. Those demon dogs are going to pop up in your dreams, and even if they don't bite you, they're going to freak you out because they have baby faces.
Yeah, but not
I can't stress it enough.
Though. I mean, they'll get in some people's dreams. I'll tell you what'll get everybody. It's The Thing will get everybody, and it may not be the scariest thing in its own movie, but that wasn't part of the question either. Just because that movie is full of terrifying things and other, incarnations of that organism doesn't mean that the Thing dog is less scary than the demon dogs in Cujo. It just means that the Thing is a masterpiece of horror that punches you repeatedly with horrible things. And the first punch is the scariest dog in horror movies.
Yeah, but that Thing dog is not going to be what gets me. In fact, if the Thing comes to get me, it's going to be a Thing cat. And it's probably going to be a terrifying Thing cat. It might be 4 Thing cats because I got 4 cats. But it won't be a Thing dog. And so that's the thing about the Thing, no pun intended, is that it's not going to just be a dog. It's going to be something else. It's going to change shape, which makes it a masterpiece and makes it great. And in fact, shameless plug alert. I'll be talking about that next week. But the Thing is most scary not because it's a dog, but because it can take the shape of anything.
Well, but your dogs aren't scary because they're dogs. They're scary because they have baby faces.
Right, but they're dogs with
baby
faces.
I don't find them scary. I think they're comical in that movie. And the movie is a little strange, but I don't find those things scary. I'll need a little more from them to scare me. And I agree with your argument that they may be the scariest thing in the movie. That might speak to that Freddy not really being scary. He's a little bit more ham-handed in his I'm going to attack you kind of way. That it's not the best Freddy, obviously. And so they're a little unsettling, but come on, scary though? I'm not getting it.
Well, again, I'm going with disgust. It's a perversion of nature to take a dog.
What was the question? I thought the question was scary.
Is it the scariest dog or the most horrible?
Yes, you even repeated scariest. And then when you looked up your definition, you looked at the definition of horror, which is broader than just scary. So I'm loving all of this. They're just not that scary. To borrow a page from Lee's book, if we're talking about what real life terror is, nothing scarier than parenthood. And if you have a baby, that's scary. And so putting a baby face on a Rottweiler is absolutely terrifying. Scary.
I like to make a counterpoint.
See,
I'm getting Cujo. I just want to defend
something
about Cujo.
Do I have to make a counterpoint to that?
Just one point I want to make about Cujo. So
Please.
A satellite phone would have taken care of the Thing. They would have been isolated then if they would have had a satellite phone. A lot of better decisions than what those people made there for the Thing. And as far as demon dogs, just wake up. That's all you have to do is just wake up.
Pinch yourself right here. Boom.
Yeah. People, you can wake up. You don't have to go through this dream. That's,
You're going to have to go back to sleep.
Yeah.
Vivarin and Mountain Dew Code Red will get you going.
Well, just think better thoughts before you go to bed. Don't eat so much of that fatty food before you go to bed. You won't have demon dogs. You won't have them.
Okay, do you guys want to go ahead and make some of your final arguments for your dogs?
I could start. Mine is the only real dog, and he's the star of the movie. He is. It actually influenced like the sales of Saint Bernards, so it actually influenced real life and that. And he might not be the most scariest, but he does have dread. There was like parts of that movie where you're just on tense, waiting for what is Cujo going to do, and that's dread right there. So, I mean, I don't know how you can say he was the scariest dog. And not only that, there was a generation of kids, these Gen Xers like me, that grew up with that being the scariest movie they ever watched in their childhood. So that's why I say Cujo is the most scariest dog in movies.
All right, I'll go. Rottweiler dogs with baby faces. Can't say it enough. It's absolutely disturbing. Again, it's a very brief moment in a movie that's not about dogs, but it's so unsettling, so disturbing, scary. Bona fide scary. Dan is made of sterner stuff than me, I suppose, because he's just nonplussed about the whole thing. But I feel it's scary. I think that is a bizarre concoction that, you know, unlike Cujo, which is something that happens naturally, and unlike The Thing, which is an alien and is very fantastical, the demon dogs is something that just should not exist in nature whatsoever. It's putting two things together that don't belong together at all. And that perversion of nature is scary. It's horrifying. Demon dogs are scary. They're the scariest dogs in horror.
So The Thing, which is clearly a better movie than Cujo and Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, but that's not the question. So The Thing is a terrifying movie. The vision of the movie is that this organism can take over the world. And yes, it's not about dogs. And yes, the Thing dog is not the scariest incarnation of this organism, but it would not have infected that group if it was not for Thing dog. Thing dog is your infiltration. And that is what makes it scary. Because if it wasn't for that, how would that movie have even turned out? Would it even have been a story? They would see this weird thing shambling at them and they would try to attack it and protect themselves from the very beginning. So Thing dog is scary. It will get into it'll worm its way into you by being cute, cuddly. And then when you least expect it, it'll turn into this weird pulsating mass with tendrils that will potentially enter your body and turn you into something else that looks like that. That's scary.
Awesome. Once again, I think you guys did a great job. I think that while Victor, I think you battled your heart out, I think I will have to knock you out first from this one, just for the fact that the demon dogs, they don't really do much of anything. I think that was a big hit that can't really be argued. While I do agree that they are freaky.
Rats.
But I think, and then, so it comes down to Dan and Lee, and I am conflicted. I feel like there was this argument where Cujo is this tragic character and that makes it less scary. And I think I was on board with Cujo for a while, but then there wasn't. Lee, I think you could have countered that argument a bit more, and I didn't see that. So now it's a tight one. I think, Dan, your closing argument was well done. I think I have to go with Dan.
Victor, I think your initial argument was very sound, but I feel like you did not hold up very well to the this one. You did your defense of the demon dogs was not as strong. So it did come down to Dan and Lee for me, and you guys both had some very good points. But I think I actually have to go against my own belief on this one, because my belief of what the correct answer is, is Cujo. But I thought Dan did a really good job presenting, and what did it for me, Dan, was hammering home the fact that this dog represents the end of the world. Lee, you had some good counterpoints. The one thing I kept wishing that you would kind of push back with is I really wish you would have kept hammering home the fact that Cujo's scarier because it can happen to you. No one has to worry about a Thing dog. No one has to worry about babyface dogs. You do have to worry about animals with rabies, so the Cujo can actually happen. And I almost wish you would kind of like pushed back with that a little bit more, and I think that would have taken it there. But it was very, very close, and there were some great arguments in there. But ultimately, Dan snuck past.
Dan's arguments, oh my God, he punched me in the gut with that Jaws argument. I didn't see, that's the one thing I didn't think. I thought that Jaws argument was going to be strong, and then Dan's like, nah, I'm going to knock that one down. I was like, oh crap, I got nothing. I got nothing for that.
Dream Warriors, buddy. I mean, like, I'm like, oh, Dream Warriors, you wrote that? Oh no. So yeah, I'm ready for this.
And then Dan's,
I don't want to like tip my hand, but I mean, I almost can see a 3-way tie after the debate because, man, Come After is going to be hard.
But babies don't have teeth.
Come true. Sorry.
Yeah, babies don't have any teeth, though. It like validates like what makes a dog scary is that they can bite you. So if it's
but Victor is right that the two most terrifying things are Rottweilers and babies. That was the soundest beginning of an argument.
Rottweilers, what?
I knew the whole of my argument was that they don't do anything, and Dan zeroed in on that, and I was like, "Damn it!" I knew to
do something. It's almost like wasted potential. You hate a horror movie that gives you a cool.
I'm convinced it's because they just couldn't have the budget to make it look cool, and it would probably have looked silly if they tried to make them do something. But and Dan, that point you made at the end, I'm glad you didn't make it earlier because it would have just crushed me. Was the idea that the thing dog is how it infiltrates this. I'm like, wow, that's something I can't even argue. That's it. All that said, I do agree with Josh. Cujo scares the hell out of me as a dog. That was what I would have picked, Lee. If you hadn't grabbed it up first, I would have absolutely picked Cujo. I love that movie, and that dog. I do think it's a tragedy. I do think it's sad as hell, but man, he's scary when he's got with all the
scene in the mist,
egg whites on him, like
nearly,
it's crazy scary.
Yeah, the scene where he's like in the mist and he like nearly kills his like child owner. It's like that is so fucking tense, and like that's like it's like Cujo's like last like act as himself, and that's so tragic, but like so sweet, but also like so scary. Also like watching him lose control. I've never read the book, but apparently it's like sad as hell from Cujo's perspective.
Yeah, that's the right.
Touch on the fact that he was the star of the movie. Cujo is really repeatedly obviously coming at them, and there's a sustained period of real danger, terror. I wouldn't want to be in that car. It was filmed so great. The interior shots are fantastic. Who directed that movie? It's great.
Oh, I don't know off the top of my head. I wrote down who the trainer was, but I didn't think of.
Josh knows.
No, I do know, but like it's kind of I'm blank on it right now because we talked about that in the Louis Teague. There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, I would have never said this during the.
Oh, it's the guy who did Alligator.
Cujo literally scared me as a kid. Like I was afraid of dogs for a long time because of Cujo.
Well, yeah, if you grew up in the 80s, that was the movie that somehow that got past the parents all the time. Oh, you can watch Cujo. It's about a dog. It's fine. And it all just scarred everyone.
If you see like the first 5 minutes, it's like that happy, like almost like Disney.
It's like Beethoven.
Yeah. They put it on, this is a good movie.
It's going to be like Old Yeller. That's all it is. It's going to be Old Yeller. We can watch it. Yeah.
Watching it as an adult, though, seeing the child in the car in like that respiratory distress or whatever, it affects me a lot more as an adult than when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I was like, what's wrong with this guy? What's wrong with the kid? I don't get it. But now I'm like, holy kid, that kid's dying. I mean, what's going on with that kid?
I think the thing that changed the most from the book was that the kid dies in the book.
Yeah.
So he doesn't survive. So, but I guess Stephen King, he actually approved it or whatever. So it wasn't like they went away with the script. So
it's a better ending to have him survive. It makes more sense for the narrative to have the kid survive. But I like down endings, but it works.
That would have been,
yeah, it would have been too dark, a little bit darker than they wanted to go. But what I didn't get, I just rewatched it about a week ago. Freeze frame. Why do you end on a freeze frame?
Yeah,
that's what I got. It's like, dude, also to scroll all the credits. I'm like, what? That's the only part I didn't really get when we were watching it. Yeah, they're just sitting there kind of hugging or whatever. Yeah, it's just weird. And all credits roll, and it's like, that's how they're going to end it, huh? Okay.
Kind of wish the freeze frame would come back a little bit.
Yeah.
All right, yeah. So it's 2 points to Dan, 2 points to Victor. Lee isn't on the board yet, but I think has a strong contender for this one. So, question number 3. What was the best horror movie of 2021? And Victor, I'll have you start this one.
All right, let's do this. The best horror movie of 2021 is, of course, Halloween Kills. Now, when we say the word best, we are being intentionally ambiguous and vague about what defines or constitutes best. Are we saying it's box office, as we talked about a little bit earlier? Because if so, then yeah, Halloween Kills is the best of these movies for sure. Is it about social media buzz? Because again, Halloween Kills is going to take that crown. But what I'm going to pose is that best in this case is about ambition and originality. And it's going to be weird for me to say originality when we're talking about the 12th installment of a slasher franchise that is 40 years old. But that is what makes Halloween Kills the best horror movie of 2021. They took the 12th installment of a 40-year-old slasher franchise and tried to do something radically different with it, which is to take the character of Michael Myers and make him the boogeyman once again and focus on Haddonfield, the town. Now, this did not work well for a lot of people. They didn't really seem to understand it. I think a lot of people were confused that, Laurie Strode was sidelined and there didn't seem to be character development. And I think those people have made the same mistake that Laurie Strode made in thinking that it's about her when it's not. And that's what made Halloween Kills so revolutionary, is that it dared to turn not only this franchise, but the horror subgenre of slashers itself kind of on its side and say, this is more about the impact that the slasher has on the community. And rather than focus on a specific victim or specific final girl, it's the town that is the main character. I've seen some people contend that Halloween Kills is a filler movie and nothing really changes in it because all the characters are in the same place they were when the movie started. But again, the character of the town is irrevocably changed. The franchise is irrevocably changed. We've gone back to basics. Michael Myers is now established firmly as a guy that's just trying to go home, which, by the way, they told us in the poster in 1978, the night he came home, he's just trying to go home. He did it in 1978. He's doing it again here. And they reestablished that he is the boogeyman. And what does the boogeyman do? He scares people. And that town gets scared. And what happens when adults get scared? Unlike kids that hide under a blanket, the town loses its damn mind. They get angry, they try to fight back, they turn on each other, they do stupid things. All of that's shown in this movie, and it's illustrated really, really well. Upon repeat viewings, and I've viewed this movie a few times now, it gets better and better because you see all the things that they're putting together that lend itself to explaining the story of Michael Myers' impact on a community. And how these people go from a community that has forgotten him and don't care about him. In fact, they show Tommy's character explaining to and chastising them for having forgotten it or not knowing it, not knowing Michael Myers from 40 years ago. And nobody cares because he killed 3 people 40 years ago in their community. Who cares? But then all of a sudden he comes back with a vengeance, which, by the way, maybe the most brutal Michael Myers that we've ever had in a movie that's not a Rob Zombie movie, which lends itself to another reason why it's great. If you're a Halloween fan, you like seeing this Michael Myers butcher people. But I like that they were bold enough to say, Laurie Strode, Jamie Lee Curtis, for 40 years has mattered, and now she doesn't matter anymore. Now it's all about Michael impacting a town, impacting a community. I think that there is, and I'll get into it more as we go on, but there's a lot of real world behavior being demonstrated in this movie. And I think a lot of people reacted poorly to this because I think it was uncomfortable for them to see mobs reacting this way, or to have this idea of people getting up in arms about something and doing something very foolhardy because they are unhappy or angry. I think those things hit close to home. And I think that's why this movie got a lot of negative attention. I think people couldn't see the forest for the trees. They didn't see what was really happening in this movie, which is they were taking a franchise in an entirely fresh new direction, a direction where there's a serial killer who doesn't just stalk teenagers, by the way, kills mostly middle-aged people. in this movie, which is another refreshing thing that's not the slasher norm, and doesn't have a central final girl, but instead has a town that is the final town, and they are as traumatized as Sally at the end of Texas Chainsaw Massacre by the end of the movie. Halloween Kills is ambitious, it's clever, it's trying to take the franchise in a new direction in a way that nobody was prepared for, nobody expected, and I can't wait to see what happens next.
All right, Dan.
Okay, for the best horror movie of 2021, I chose a movie that I think was filmed in 2019, and I think it was like at a film festival in 2020. But Noah said I could use it for this, and I'm going with Titane. So it's a fantastic French movie. I love a lot of things about this movie. So it's almost like two movies in one. So at the beginning of the movie, you have your main character who injured when she's a child. She has something done to her head to protect her skull, brain, some kind of a metal, titanium, implant or, prosthetic is there to protect her for the rest of her life. And that becomes somehow part of her in a sort of body horror way. As the movie progresses, she becomes an adult. She's working with cars in a weird way. She's like a model that kind of poses on cars. It's at the beginning, she's a murderer. There's no question about it. I mean, she's like, what do we feel about this character? She's killing people, and not even necessarily people that deserve to die, like you sometimes see in other horror movies. And there's something happens though when she has sex with a car. You're like, is that car raping her? Like, is she in a dream state? No, she's willingly having sex with this car, which is not a choice that I would make. But the thing is, it's the movie is very surreal in a lot of ways. Obviously, you have the car sex scene, but what happens is then the car has impregnated her. So we're being asked to suspend some disbelief here, and we're rolling with it because only in these strange ways is it unrealistic. The rest of it is actually presented very straightforward. You get to a point where she needs to escape the law. The murders are catching up with her. There's investigations. It's very realistic. A lot of horror movies don't really focus too much on how much criminal trouble you're going to get in. And then she tries to impersonate someone's lost son so that they'll take her in. And she has to basically hide the fact that she's becoming pregnant with this Cars baby, which I've never said talking about another movie before. So the plot of this movie is definitely odd, unique in its own way. The man who takes her in, who was the father of the lost child, at some point, he knows it's not his own son, but it's more important for him to have that void filled in his life. So it's almost like two halves, this movie. The only constant, of course, is this one character. What's different is in the beginning you have is it a villain? Is it sympathetic? By the end, the same character, we are sympathetic toward her. And she's becoming more and more pregnant with this car baby. And, there's oil coming out of her instead of blood. It's very, like I say, some of it's super surreal, some of it's pretty straightforward. But what I love about the movie is what makes the movie great to me is less the story. Because I think you'll have trouble accessing the story like you might other movies. It's not really, oh, I've seen this happen, or oh, I could be scared of that happening to me. It's not that kind of story. So I think a lot of people might watch it and not really understand where they're going with the movie. Instead, it's a movie that makes you think about yourself. What is it about this movie that makes you so disturbing? Is it because it's about being uncomfortable with your own body or your own gender identity? Because it's pretty big how she tries to, she's fitting in the second half of the movie with a bunch of men in a fire station who, it's very much about gender, body dysmorphia, all kinds of issues that you have real ways of thinking about your relation to the story, to these characters. Even though it's weird and surreal, where do you fit in? Your brain is taking all of this in. how do I fit in with this? I find that very intriguing and engaging for a movie to do that, particularly for a horror movie to do that, because a lot of times horror movies put you in the seat and that you're just kind of experiencing it, and it's less about your relationship with what's happening. It gets into your head a little bit less, I feel like, with horror. And I think with T-Tain, it's really getting into your head. And I think some people don't like that. Does that, like, Victor mentioned box office and whatnot. I don't know. I mean, this won like the best film at the Cannes Film Festival, if you want to go there. That's pretty amazing because horror movies don't win that. I think this is only the second one to do it. But it may only be maybe the first. I'm not certain of that. But the idea is, I'm not saying that that's why it's a great movie. That's why those critics thought it was great. They loved it. I think it's great because it's different than other horror movies. And it is a horror movie. There's no question that it's a horror movie. But what is it doing better than other horror movies? And it's getting inside your head in a really intimate, personal way. Does everyone love that? No. That's kind of why I like horror. I want something that makes my stomach turn or makes my brain turn. Maybe both, because this movie gives you both.
Awesome. Thank you, Dan. And Lee.
So who would have known that building little modules that called alternate realities would help you later on as a director? So my choice for 2021 Movie of the Year for horror movies is directed by Anthony Scott Burner, called Come True. So this movie puts you and takes you right away and puts you in like almost a surreal situation. It deals with a young girl who is homeless, but it deals it in a very unique way where she's homeless, but she's not necessarily, she'll go back to her house, come back. And it's an interesting way they deal with that. But in order to make money, she's trying to go to a sleep study and get paid to sleep. And she had sleepwalking problems, but it puts you into a dream state. You don't understand what's real and what's not. You get to this like surreal area. And plus with the Anthony Scott Burns, he does a score that just puts you in this mood. And it's really timeless because you don't know what period it is, because some of the technology is new, some of it looks old, but then you go into a scary part of reality, which is actually, if you read about this, there's actual sleep paralysis and there are claim to see shadow people. And that is absolutely terrifying. This is almost like what Wes Craven was trying to do with some of the Nightmare on Elm Street, is that these little creatures on the side will watch you while you wake up, but you can't move or anything. And you swear they're real, even though supposedly they're not real. So it goes on, and you realize they can actually see her dreams of these people, and they're trying to research the dreams and seeing who these shadow people are. And it goes on and develops a relationship between he's kind of creepy though, but the guy keeps stalking her and later has a relationship with her, and they have their intertwined. He shows her that they're watching her dreams, and you're actually seeing when the moment of these creatures come to observe them. And not only does it keeps going, it ramps it up, and it's definitely a slow burn. But there are certain scenes where you're entering into the dream. They kind of explain it as like your mind cannot comprehend, like all the visuals is coming into it. So you go into a tunnel to get into your dream. And dreams are it gets dreamed so well because it goes into your dream and the entry into the dream, and anything can happen. Like every time you enter into the dream, you're looking off to the side and seeing what is over here, what is over here. And then you get into the dream like, oh, what's going to happen? It's just constant dread coming at you when you go into the dream sequences. Plus the music in the background. I mean, you look on the side, music in the background lead you into that. And then you're looking on the side and say, oh, there's something messed up over here. There's something messed up over here. What's in this hallway? And then like sometimes it's a door. Sometimes it's like a black tunnel. Sometimes it's a freaky like leg creature that comes out at you. Even after the second viewing, I had to walk up. I had to walk away for a quick moment. But it keeps going on, keeps building and building. And finally she starts going into a walk she just starts sleepwalking. It starts manifesting in her real life. She starts seeing these shadow creatures. And what it ends up doing, she ends up like trying to leave it, but she keeps coming back in by her lover later on. So she goes, finally at the end, she's sleepwalking, and the two of the researchers decide to look at, like, to bring out the actual, the camera or the suit, and they see her going down a tunnel, and you're wondering, where is this going to go? And it slowly builds up to a crescendo at the end. And then you find out, spoilers, she's been in a dream state this whole time. Now, not only is that important, but you start realizing through it, when they put the framing of it, it does Jungian type archetypes. And so you get like the self, the persona, or I believe the persona is what you show to people. And that's what at the beginning. So you realize it does that. And then it goes to like the animus and anima, which is like the male and female desires and things like that. You have the shadow, which are the beast things that comes into your life. Then you have the self, which is your real self. So not only does it like put other things with that type of thought, it brings up other like archetypes, like each person is a certain archetype with that, because it's always a dream state to begin with. Pretty much Jacob Ladder's You Had borrows kind of that type of mind frame in it. Not only that, but with the movie, it's ultra scary and it doesn't kill anyone really. I mean, you can argue at the one part the two people die and possibly she died according to the movie, but also grabs the dreams too. It takes the dreams and just portrays them as that at the end of a dream, it always just gets messed up. And I've never seen a movie that actually makes you think like that's how a dream should be. And you also, afterwards, it just sits with you. And it sits with you. You want to think about it. You want to look up Jung. You want to, even after that, I got to watch again and see what did I miss from the first one. So that's why also it was a similar thing. It did win 5 Bloodies in a Canadian Film Festival. And later it came out. But that's why I think Come True 2021 is my best horror film.
Awesome. Debate.
I'll start with the obvious point. Halloween Kills is the only movie that actually came out in 2021. You guys both addressed that, but I'll let it go. I just had to say it.
No, I cleared it with Noah. I called BS on that. Noah said I could use it. It's usable.
And to be fair, Come True did come out in America in 2021. So it was Canada where they actually had the film festival.
Oh,
so.
If you Google Ketane, it says 2021.
Is this the best American horror movie of 2021? Because again, I'm gonna win. All right, let's get into actual substantive stuff. Let me stop this messing around. I'll start with Come True because I think that Lee explained it in an incredibly good way. And I'll be honest with you, Lee, I think your explanation of it is more interesting than the movie I saw. I think that the movie looks great, sounds great, sets a really great mood, but it doesn't have a lot of fun. And I'm not saying that to be a good horror movie or a great horror movie, you have to have fun. I'm saying this movie would have benefited from some fun.
Wait,
the movie is
Halloween Kills is fun?
Oh yeah.
Halloween Kills is the least fun I've had sitting in front of a horror movie for a long time.
Why didn't you have any fun?
Because of what it does to the franchise that it's called itself part of, actually. I give it no credit for being original, because you even said it's going back to what it did in the first movie. It's about Michael and it's about the city or the town. That's not original. It's just trying.
Well, the first movie wasn't about the town. The first movie wasn't about the town. The first movie was about Laurie Strode, but it went back to the original motivation for Michael Myers. But why didn't you have fun watching it? What was it that made it not fun?
No. I mean, you're talking about Come True not having fun. Not being fun or something. I'm like, what is fun about Halloween Kills?
Well, first of all, let me finish the point with Lee, which is,
yes.
Come True, I don't think the movie needs to be fun in order to be a good horror movie. I'm saying Come True would have benefited from having more fun, something more fun in it. I think it would have evened it out a little bit. But going back to your claim that Halloween Kills isn't fun, why don't you think it's fun?
I think that it was appealing to the basest desires in a horror fan, and I'm not that guy. And I don't.
By basest desires, you mean like the brutal kills?
It doesn't pump me up to watch Michael Myers be more brutal than another movie. That doesn't do it for me. I I like some stuff in there, but I don't consider a good movie just an assembly of good pieces. It's got to be more than that. It's got to have something more cogent to it. And I see your points are good, and I'll already admit that your points, kind of like you said about Lee's argument, your points make me think better of the movie than I did when I watched it. So that's good on you, but I would like to sit in front of a movie that doesn't require Professor Victor to professor it for me. Especially a 12th slasher movie. Like, where does this guy come in trying to be, it's not reinventing the wheel. It's just not. The story is not very good to me. I think that some of the choices of what the characters do are typical bad horror movie decisions, kind of just tumbling together to it is a little different in that it's a lot about the mob mentality. I think that's a nice, fresh aspect to it. But at the end of the day, it's still, it's just lacking some. Do I hate it? Probably not. But do I consider it the best horror movie of the year? No. The best of the month it was released in? Maybe. I haven't looked at the calendar that carefully, but maybe the best of the month.
So let me address a few of those things. First, I'll concede, if you don't like brutal kills, then yeah, you're going to have a problem with Halloween Kills in terms of fun, and most slashers probably for that matter. But the thing that really stood out to me was when you were talking about lack of cohesion in the movie, because you're proposing that Titane is the best movie of the year, and that's literally two separate movies. You've got a body horror movie that becomes a really compelling drama, and both parts of it are good, but it's not cohesive at all. In fact, those two parts don't really mesh well together. It's very jarring. It's not meshing together like the way that, say, like Parasite or even Martyrs really blends genres together in a way that kind of feels seamless and makes sense. Titane is jarring. There's two really good movies in there. Putting them together was a challenge because you think you zeroed in on yourself.
Every movie is trying to do something different. I'm not saying that because one movie is not cohesive that another movie has to be cohesive. Sure. They're trying to do different things, clearly. And I mean, Halloween Kills, I'm not saying that I don't like brutal kills. I'm just saying that I felt like the way that this movie is trying to appeal to me, Halloween Kills, is simply by giving me more brutal kills than I've previously seen from Michael Myers. When the best Halloween movie is the first one, that the kills aren't even really that brutal. I mean, the strangling in the car is pretty brutal. But I mean, the idea is this really what Michael Myers is? And does a sequel have to give you that exact thing? No. But I'm just not sure for Halloween Kills that it does it for me. And I think it suffers a bit from being a sequel, as all sequels suffer. But, I'm not,
Well, and to be fair, because Halloween Kills, it's a trilogy. It's a trilogy, and you have the middle one. Usually the middle one is usually weaker. It's very rarely. Maybe Empire would be the only one I can think of off the top of my head. The second is better. But even then, they didn't think that Empire, at the time, people thought there's too many loose ends, and this father thing makes no sense. But later on with the third one, so you got to look at all three. But the second one is kind of, it's just trying to lead to the third movie, trying to set up a little bit of the third movie. And it does an okay job, but it kind of meanders, I think. It concentrates more on the kills than the meandering of the plot into the end.
I've heard the argument that the second movie is kind of just a bridge movie between the first and the third. I have a couple of thoughts on that. The first one is it's not a trilogy because 1978's Halloween is an essential part of the story. There's going to be 4 parts to this story, not 3. So it's not really bridging any trilogy at all. But more importantly, my contention is that this movie isn't meandering. It's changing the nature of both the franchise and slashers. It's changing the focus from, most slasher movies are focused on either the killer or the victims or both. This movie's focusing on the town in the aggregate. And the way the correlation I would make is like a community that suffered a mass shooting, which unfortunately I have actually lived in a community that suffered a mass shooting, and the reaction and the aftermath of that horrible act. But what it did in this movie is it combined it with I'll kind of come out and say it, kind of the right-wing reactionary feeling of trying to fight, right? So I think back to like the shooting that happened here. If that active shooter, or if that shooter had stayed active, he hadn't died and was at large, this community absolutely would have broke out their guns and started hunting him down, just like in Halloween Kills. That's absolutely what would have happened. And what's funny to me about Halloween Kills is that whole scene in the hospital and the mob that a lot of people really hate is interesting to me, because it was filmed a good year or more before the Capitol riots. But damn if it didn't look a lot like that. I think a lot of reason why people were so troubled by that is because it felt a little too real. People said it's unrealistic, it's people making stupid decisions, but we'd literally seen this in real life. People who were angry and scared and wanted to do something, to feel like they could have some control over something that they really have no control over. I think Halloween Kills zeroed in on that really, really well, and tried to set that up pretty early in the movie with Tommy Doyle and his speech to the bar, trying to get people to remember and care about this. It's a tragedy that happened 40 years ago that people have forgotten about, and then it comes and impacts their lives, and you see how people react. You see how the boogeyman scares people.
That's
as
great.
adults.
The question wasn't how realistic is the horror movie, or what the most realistic horror movie is. And I don't know that realistic makes it greater. I see how it helps the story of Halloween, and I enjoy that aspect of it. I also have some issue with you saying that it's changing something about slasher movies when it just came out like a few months ago. So let's pump the brakes a little bit on how much influence it's going to have on slasher movies. I like where you're going with that idea, because you mentioned the Capitol riots, and maybe culturally, maybe we'll have some more movies that are going in this direction. Let's wait to see it before we give this movie credit for starting it. But that's
so. I'll respond to both of those things. So first of all, I'll respond to that. I am kind of giving it credit for something that hasn't happened yet, and that's because I think that the movie is ambitious, and I love a movie that's trying to swing for the fences, especially that movie that's part 12, and not just issuing the formula, trying to do something that might resonate years from now, something that might reinvigorate not just the franchise but also the subgenre.
Wait, ambitious like T-Tain, trying to take what are two disparate stories and to merge them in a useful way? Because that's ambitious to me. I'm glad you made an argument for me.
Sure, but there's the caveat being that with T-Tain, you said this yourself, the only thing holding those two things together is your central character, who is a cipher. We have no connection to her whatsoever. We don't connect to her as a character. She doesn't articulate any kind of motivation or feeling. There's no empathy for her. You really don't feel anything for her. You don't know her. You don't understand her. And she's the one who's going to hold all of this together. And if I can't connect to her, I'm not sure I'm buying that she's holding it together. So that's where I think that
loaded with unsympathetic characters. Like, I think that's the biggest problem.
I would disagree with that.
I actually rather that Michael Myers succeed and kill everybody.
I would actually disagree with that, because I think
movie where I just want him to kill everybody.
I would say that Halloween Kills excels at actually making you sympathize with many of the victims. You've got the middle-aged couple with a drone that gets killed. You like them. Everybody loves Big John and Little John. They do a great job with a very small amount of time making you care about those victims. And here's the thing about T-Tain. Like I wanted to care about that character. And I couldn't. And now here's where I'll kind of help your argument a little bit, Dan, is that by making her a cipher, it allows an audience to project what they want onto it. And that's one of my issues with the movie, is that you were talking about how it makes people think, and I don't disagree with you at all. I've read the reviews of it, and people have brought up the gender issues, stuff like that. And I would contend that that's people bringing their own stuff to the table, because the movie itself, I mean, she's not having a gender issue. She's hiding. She's doing that out of a necessity, not out of a gender issue. But if people can get that out of it, great. And that's where I'll concede something to you, which is if you can, great art makes people interact with it. Right. And I will say that T-Tain has done that. I didn't connect with it like that because I didn't connect with the character very much. But if other people are able to kind of imbue their feelings and thoughts into that character, who is kind of a blank slate, then that's a certain level of success. For me, why Halloween Kills is resonating.
Blank of a slate, though. I mean, the thing about that character is, and what makes the movie so ambitious and challenging as a writer and director, which she's fantastic already for having done Raw. But I mean, the thing is, it's a murderer. How is that a blank slate? I mean, it makes it incredibly challenging, to ask your audience to invest in this character who is odious. in the first half of the movie, you don't want anything to do with that character. You might even be afraid of her. But by the end, you're hoping that she's okay. She's found herself in this other scenario. I mean, it's not an accessible movie in a lot of ways. And again, we're not arguing it's most accessible, but to me, it's that you're talking about original with Halloween Kills. I think certainly, T-Tain is more original as a horror concept. I don't think there's a lot of originality to Halloween Kills.
That's my argument too. Yeah, is that Halloween Kills has no original. I don't feel that there was anything originally pointed out. I mean, they did little nods to previous one. Oh, there's Tommy Doyle, yay! But I just feel that in like Laurie Strode, she doesn't matter. She didn't matter after the second movie. I mean, there was like a whole bunch of other movies. She didn't matter in most of the movies. So I mean, I don't even think in the Rob Zombies she was a main character, but. I mean, she did a little bit more, but yeah, but even then, the Rob Zombie movies, I think, were more brutal at times than Halloween Kills.
Yeah,
so,
I don't want to refer to Rob Zombie movies as better than your.
Wow, I said brutal. That's a little bit different. Yeah.
I love the brutal Rob Z, Michael Myers. That's my favorite thing about that movie is the Michael Myers reincarnation. And I don't have a problem with this particular Michael Myers either. Don't get me wrong. This is a good Michael Myers. But that's not enough for me, to make it the best horror movie of 2021.
Here's where Halloween Kills' success lies in the originality, is that it's trapped in the confines of being part 12 of an established franchise. And yet it's not letting that shackle it. It's not doing the formula. It's doing something very different. Now, fans like their formulas. Like we all sit there and cry, we want originality. But if you look at box office, we want to see the new Marvel movie that's following the same formula as always. That's just the way it is. Halloween Kills didn't follow that formula. And I think people reacted negatively to that fact that it didn't follow that formula. The originality is not, it's doing something completely different. It's, I guess you could argue Rob Zombie tried to do that. What it's trying to do is stay in the confines, but take things in a fresh new direction. And that fresh new direction to me is making Michael more of a concept, an idea, the boogeyman, and really focusing on what kind of impact that has. We only, in other movies, have only maybe tangentially heard that kind of thing, not just in Halloween, but in other franchises too. Like, why do people keep going to Camp Crystal Lake? We really don't sit there and have a movie called Crystal Lake and talk about these people. And in fact, if they'd called Halloween Kills Haddonfield, I would have loved that, because I think that would have been a little bit more telegraphing to the audience what they were really going to focus on. I like the idea that Michael Myers isn't really the main character, even though we follow him a lot. And then to kind of concede to Dan, I think that the brutal kills and everything like that is kind of giving the audience some of what they want, right? It's not trying to just kind of do what T-Tain does, which is like, hey, I'm going to give you something wholly new. You're either going to go with it or you're not. Halloween Kills is trying to stay in the confines. It's trying to still give the fans something that they recognize, something that they want, but also kind of guide them in another direction. I would say T-Tain is throwing you in the deep end. Halloween Kills is trying to inch you into the deep end, little by little, let you get used to the water.
I think that Halloween Kills is both, the fact that it's a 12-movie franchise is both a strength and a weakness. And I think you make a great point against yourself, which is they should have called it Haddonfield, because too many people watched it and didn't realize that perhaps the biggest narrative strength of the movie is that one of the bigger characters is Haddonfield. And this is not a complicated movie, Halloween Kills. So do something better with it so that I know what your argument is in the story. There's a failure to the movie. I'm not sure how much, of a horror movie Come True is. Is it a great movie? Yeah, I love Come True. Does it make me think? I love to think, right? I already said that. So yeah, Come True is just really, turning your wheels, which is a fantastic thing. But, we've been talking a lot about scary and horror and what those things are. Is sleep paralysis terrifying? Yes. Is it a real thing? Yes. Is it the coolest movie that I've ever seen address this, real scientific phenomenon? Absolutely. How does all this add up, though? I'm not sure that I'm really kind of shuffling it in with other horror movies in the same way. I almost think of it differently, but I do like to think of horror as an inclusive genre as opposed to exclusive. So it is a horror movie in that way. I'm just wondering, it's hard for me to say this, having also been, defending T-Tain, but you look at it and it has almost like an uncomfortable fit in this conversation. I don't know, Victor, how do you look at Come True and compare it to Halloween Kills, let's say. There's just no slasher aspect to Come True.
Yeah, I will agree with you. Halloween Kills is the more obvious horror thing. And like you, Dan, I'm very inclusive with horror. In fact, my channel is all about being inclusive with horror. So I'm not going to even try to argue that Come True is not a horror. I will say this. While Come True taps into dreams, which I think is one of the most ripe and fertile grounds for exploring horror, it's not the first movie to do this. And we already talked about Nightmare on Elm Street and Phantasm, both of which I think did it better. Now, it's not to say that Come True isn't good or doing well. In fact, I think one of the strongest points about Come True, to make an argument for Lee, is that it's more realistic than the other two movies. It taps into more of a science-based approach to it, which I think is really good. But in terms of exploring that dream world, the fantastical elements of it, both Nightmare and Phantasm, I think, were more compelling to me. And I think those are ones that have endured for a reason. I'm not sure Come True will endure also. And I know we're not trying to talk about future impact, but I question whether Come True would have the same kind of lasting, indelible impact as the other two movies.
Well, to defend this Come True, there's also like Titan. I like the movie, but it's not an entry-level movie for horror people. You cannot go to someone that doesn't normally watch horror and say, let's watch this movie Titan. Like, there'll be people just turned off from it. And also, I mean, you can't relate to I couldn't really, I mean, the one part I didn't like about it, I couldn't relate to her. I couldn't relate to him either in the movie. Yeah. I mean, either one, they didn't seem redeemable characters. So it's hard to cheer for someone or, try to get hope for someone when I just don't care what happens with them. And that's the same thing with Halloween Kills. I just don't care about
Petition to call it Haddonfield.
Yeah. Also known as Haddonfield. I just don't care what Tommy Doyle does. We already got his story. Now we're trying to tell another story. I don't care what Joe or whatever. I don't care what these firefighters. I didn't want to go into that area. And you're just kind of going into what Halloween 6 did. What we didn't want to know about the Halloween series, I want to learn more about Laurie Strode. I mean, I want to see her dynamics. I mean, I want to at least concentrate on him and the kills. You're not going to get someone to go, hey, let's go see Halloween Kill. Half the people I know would not even want to go see it. I could convince someone to watch Come True no matter who they are. I said, it's cool about dreams. If you're into dreams, it's scary. It's somewhat scary, but it is accessible to everyone can look, and you get someone interested in it, that it's about dreams, and plus the Jungian part of it to look at it. So, I mean, this is Titan is one of the first real body horror movies I watched. And I said, I need to ease into this a little bit more. I'm interested in it, but that's kind of like smack. Oh, that's right into the middle of body horror, things like that. So
we're gonna go right to fucking a car.
Yeah, I know. Fucking car. Yeah. Is she fucking that?
Are you ready?
Yeah.
I do agree. I agree with Lee that Come True is probably the most accessible of the movies, and I think that's a very important thing. I will, however, disagree with you a little bit, because I think your protagonist in Come True is equally hard to connect with. Now, I will admit that by the end of the movie, there's a reason for that narratively makes sense. What we're left with is a character who has some mystery around her, but those mysteries don't ever really pay off. And again, when you find out at the end of the movie, you know why they don't pay off. But for a large part of the movie, I was a little frustrated about not knowing more about her backstory and why she had wound up in the circumstances she had. So I had a similar feeling to that as what you're saying with both Titan and Halloween Kills. So I think that kind of winds up being a little bit of a wash. But I will concede that it is probably the most accessible of the movies. If I was trying to bring a horror newbie into it, out of the three movies, I definitely wouldn't go with Titan. That's what I call them, postgraduate level, to borrow my own terminology from my site. But it's a challenging film, whereas Come True probably challenging in an intellectual way, but not challenging from a horror constitution way. I'll give you that.
To be fair with Sarah, though, she's not meant to be as you're supposed to identify with her. She's supposed to be a vessel through what you're going through the film in. She's kind of like the observer of the film. It's kind of like, why do people like Keanu Reeves? He's not a great actor by any means, but he's a perfect vessel for you to imagine that you're John Wick going through that. So that's what Sarah's kind of is. She's like a vessel for you to imagine yourself in this situation and see what's actually happening. You're not supposed to totally identify with her. I mean, some way, but you're supposed to visualize yourself as her, possibly.
I do, however, feel like the movie set up some mystery there that didn't get solved. And again, I think that the ending forgives that, but you don't get that to the last 5 minutes of the movie. So a large part of the movie, I had some wondering about her mother. It takes the time to set that up, but then it doesn't do anything with it. And so distraction for me.
So I'm going to throw in acting here, just because I happen to think it's a strength of Titane. That Vincent Lindon and I'll try the French, Agatha Roussel, those roles are not easy to do, and yet I don't know that you could argue they don't do those roles. Give credit again to the great director Julie Ducournau. I think her name is pronounced, maybe not, but she's fantastic. We know that about her work already. And I just think that again, to borrow your term again, ambitious, Victor, very ambitious project. I think Come True is also pretty ambitious. And then I'll agree that, the Halloween Kills film is ambitious, especially because it is the 12th movie. If you were to say this is the best 12th movie of a horror franchise ever, I will agree. But
Witchcraft 12. Witchcraft 12 is possible. No.
Right, Puppet Master 12.
What is there, 25 of those, I think?
No, I'm kidding in a way, but the truth of the matter is, to go back to acting, I love Jamie Lee Curtis. I'm glad she's in the movie, but I think that Halloween Kills, and I don't need to see all kinds of Laurie Strode per se. I'm okay with it going in other directions, but what it uses of her is kind of pathetic in its one-note driven revenge gal. I'm not into. Maybe this is part of why I don't like it either. It's like, to me, one of the more compelling characters is used enough in terms of screen time, but what they do with her is so much less than. It is almost as bad as what they do in, what is it, Halloween 6, right? When she is like, they just use her to kill her off.
Resurrection? Yeah.
Yeah,
I think she's used far better here than she is in Resurrection, because
it is true. But
one of my favorite parts of the movie. I'm sorry?
H2O Resurrection, you're talking about.
I'm gonna have you guys. We're gonna move to closing statements. So wrap up what you were going to say, and then I want you guys to focus on what makes your film the best in your kind of closing statement.
Okay. Should I go first?
Sure.
Okay. So I've kind of stated it a lot. I'm pressing that the idea is Halloween Kills is a fresh take on a stale franchise, an attempt to make something unique and different and take the franchise in a different direction. And I think it succeeds in that. I think that it will, upon revisiting, people's opinions of it will come around on it. I admit I'm kind of trying to predict the future here a little bit, but that's what makes this movie so exciting to me. That's why I call it the best movie, is that it stirred a lot of passion. People cared about this movie. Whether they loved it or hated it, people had an opinion about this movie. It mattered. And I think that that's what will keep people talking about it into the future and comparing it again, not just its own franchise, but against other movies too, because I do think that other movies will start to follow suit and try to bring in the current political climate and current events and our new scariness to this, because right now we're not afraid of slashers anymore. We're afraid of mass shooters. We're afraid of big murderers, not people killing people off one by one. So how does the slasher survive in that? Well, I think Halloween Kills is taking a step in that direction and trying to kind of align itself with that same kind of aftermath that a mass shooting tragedy would have. I think that's what makes it fresh and exciting. I like that it's taking the tropes of, a bunch of teenagers in the woods getting killed and turning that off into the side and putting it in, real people like us, enjoying their life at home, getting attacked. That whole thing that we talked about kind of with Cujo earlier, it could happen to you. Titane, I'm not having sex with no cars. It's not going to happen to me. Come True, maybe. But Halloween Kills could happen to you. It could happen to your community. It has happened to many communities in a different form. And I think that that's part of what makes it so scary. It's what makes it so interesting. And I think that, again, I'm going back to ambition, but I think the ambition paid off. I think that they hit what they were trying to hit, with the caveat that we'll see what happens in the next movie. I might be proven completely wrong, but the fact that I'm excited to see what happens, the fact that everybody's curious to see, in fact, that even the people who hated this movie will almost certainly still see the next one to see what happens, is a testament to just the power of it and how how much widespread interest there is in the movie, how much it makes a difference. We talked about earlier how great art challenge is and how it makes people bring their stuff to the table. I think people definitely have brought their strong opinions and their biases to these movies, to this movie in particular. And I think that the reactions that it has evoked is what makes it arguably great art. And yeah, I'm talking about part 12 of a 40-year-old slasher series, and I'm going to call it great art. Come at me, bro.
Well, I can in this format because I've already debated that it's not great art. But I will say that what is great art, thank you, is T-Tame. And it is ambitious, and it is richly beautiful to look at as a movie. It combines sort of a brutality, but also a beauty. It's combining a lot of things that don't seem to fit together. It combines these two pieces of the movie into one. It's not cogent per se, and it's not the most accessible movie in the world. So if you want to access the movie in an easy way, you might want to work your way up a little bit. This one is a body horror movie in its own way, following a long strand of body horror, which is well established by your David Cronenberg and your Tetsuo and all of that. But this is different, and it's more artistic in some ways than even those things. I mean, some Cronenberg can be pretty artistic in some ways, but it kind of tones down a little of the body horror and brings up a little of the humanity, a little bit more of the what makes people tick, what makes you tick, what makes her tick. The character is a little hard to understand, but that doesn't mean, I mean, how many, villains are really easy to get in the mind of and still yet you're sympathetic to them by the end of the movie? It's a bit of a trick to that. And I think it's deftly done in this movie. I think that's what makes it a great movie. I think it makes it the best horror movie of 2021, but I also think it makes it more than just a great horror movie. It really makes you wonder what makes a movie work, and because it does work, it does work for everybody. And I'm not sure the Halloween Kills works for everybody either, but in other words, not every movie that has to work for everybody to be a great movie. I think this is an example of one of those. And by the end, it could be that much more satisfying to make such an ambitious project work for a part of your audience. Sometimes you're going to lose some of your audience along the way. My favorite writer is James Joyce. God forbid that man write for anybody in particular. He has his own vision. This movie had its own vision. She gets there at the end, and there's a baby in your hands. And suddenly, the guy has to care for this baby. What? That's the movie. You gotta watch it.
Yeah. Well, with Come True, I want to say it's the most accessible movie. Like, you can convince someone to watch this movie. I mean, you can talk to anyone and convince them this is really good. And not only that, it's visually striking. It keeps the tone all through the movie, and it just slowly increases the crescendo of the horror to come from the dreams. And the basic concept of it is that the sleep paralysis and the shadow people just puts it into a horror and dread. Like there's one scene where they're messing with the equipment and all of a sudden you see the shadow people behind them and you don't know what happens. So it's in your mind. It's in the person's mind to fill in the blanks on some of this movie. And I love that part of the movie where you can fill in part of the blanks and you look in what is Jung? What is this? It just sits with you and makes you think of stuff. I mean, I can't say another movie that influenced me to research stuff. In the Mouth of Madness with Sam Neill is the only other movie I could think of where it literally got me into H.P. Lovecraft just watching that movie. This one, I did research, and not just because of this. After I watched that movie, I did look at books of Jung. I was looking at stuff. I knew about sleep paralysis, but I was looking at research of sleep paralysis and seeing what these creepy shadow people were. So if a movie can do that for you and leave you with a want to know more about it and more about what it deals with and more of things like that, I think that's the best movie of 2021.
Awesome. But yeah, I think really well fought on by all three of you once again. Josh, what were your thoughts?
I thought there was some very good arguments in here. Everyone did a pretty good job. Although I will say, Victor, you did break one of my cardinal rules of a strong debate, which is never tell somebody that they don't like something because they don't understand it. Which is one of my points against you for that. But I will say that even with a lot of strong comments out there, I'm giving this one to Lee based upon the fact that Professor Victor and Dan, you guys both almost bolstered his argument because you were saying such nice things about the movie. It was the movie that got Lee did a good job of explaining why he loved it, and you guys basically backed it up with more love. You did point out some flaws in the film, but I thought that Lee did a good job of kind of bluffing over those flaws a little bit, whereas the flaws with Titane and Halloween Kills were a little bit harder to overcome, and you guys were a little bit harsh on each other's movies, where when it came to time to talk about Come True, it's just like, oh no, I love that one. So it felt to me like that was the clear victor here. Winner, I guess I should say.
Yes, I agree with you,
I got excited for
Josh. I think that, Dan and Victor went to war with each other, and while I think that worked well for Victor in like round one, I think when it came time to talk about Come True, there were no complaints about it that were not already stated for the other two movies, plus some. So I think that there's also just a lot of good arguments for Come True and the style that it maintains throughout the film and how it builds, as opposed to the other two films being kind of like lots of things like mishmashed together that work for some people, they don't work for others. So it was a good argument for this being like the most accessible and the most consistent film as well.
First half of this debate, I feel like Lee was just standing back and he was being the guy from Godzilla. It's just like
I was trying to get in some spots. Yeah, I was trying to get in. I'm like, well, I'll just let them wind up and go after each other. I'm like,
okay.
I
felt it happening. I was even like, I even said something that I'm like, yeah, with Come True, and then I felt myself not saying anything negative.
And at one point, you actually tried to point me.
It to Victor, like, what do you think, Victor? And
yeah, you actually pointed me at Come True. My problem with Come True is that ending is so good, and all the issues that I have with Come True kind of got smoothed over by the ending. Like, I even tried to bring some of it up, like, oh, there's this mystery with this girl and it doesn't pay off. I'm like, but it does, because the ending kind of solves all that. And like, even as I'm saying, I'm like, I don't even believe what I'm saying, damn it. Like, I was having such a hard time.
A lot of people didn't like the ending. Whenever I saw a review of it, the ending they didn't like the ending. I was like, that's a perfect ending. Yeah.
See, that's what's funny. That's what I would have attacked. My first attack would be like, you're gonna go with the movie where the ending is it's all a dream. I mean, come on.
I should have done it because people hate it's all a dream. I love it though.
101. Like, I mean, that was my biggest beef with the movie was I didn't totally care for the ending because I don't like, oh, it was all just a dream and the whole movie. Like, I just don't like those endings. I liked quite a bit of the movie going up until that point. I felt that ending kind of like yanked the rug out. It does make a lot of what happened earlier in the movie make sense to me, but it takes a cheap method to do it. So
why I wouldn't argue that is because
that's a writing rule. Obviously, you can't end a movie that way or a story where it was all just a dream. I think that's why it's actually so successful, because I think it actually, in that case, works. 999 times out of 1,000, I don't want to see that ending.
Yeah,
right. But I think for that movie,
I like about
okay, well, I do like it there because it makes everything work for me that wasn't working. Then it's back on me. I had to think about it a little more than the Halloween Kills, but I had to really kind of start to go back through the whole movie was a dream, just starting at a certain point. I mean, I love that I'm thinking about it. Even right now, I want to watch it again.
What I like is that it's not just it was all a dream, but it is a dream. It's still happening. And that's what I like with the ending, is it's not just it was all a dream. She hasn't woken up. She's still in the dream. And that's the thing I like the most about it. It makes it feel fresher to me than all the other it was just a dream things. And I was afraid that if I said Josh's argument, that Lee would come back with what I just said. And I would not be able to argue that, because I'm just like, that's what I like about it, is that she's still stuck in the dream. Josh, I know people hate that.
Movies. You know, like Prince of Darkness, like how do you get into somebody's dream consciousness with a message from the outside? So it made me think of Prince of Darkness, which is a very different movie. But it made me think of that. How did it happen in this movie? It's like a cell phone. I mean, it's just great little idea.
Okay, guys. So, yes, we have a tiebreaker question now. So two players are going to make it to the speed round, and this will be the question that decides it. This question is not worth a point. So it will also be in the speed round kind of format, which means I'm going to present the question. You guys are going to shout out your answers, for this one, there will be 3 options, and you shout out the option that you want to argue for. And then you will each get literally 30 seconds to talk about your choice. And then there will be a 30-second period for rebuttals. It's going to be super fast, and you got to bring your A game for it. All right, is everyone ready? Which is the best condiment? Mustard, ketchup, or mayonnaise?
Mayonnaise.
Mustard.
Okay. Ketchup.
I got ketchup.
Okay. Dan, do you want to start?
Sure. Mayonnaise is the base for a lot of other condiments, first of all. You're not going to have your Thousand Island. You're not going to have your special sauces. You're not going to have anything. But mayonnaise is unctuous. It's delicious. It actually has its own protein because it has eggs in it. And I just love, who doesn't love the flavor of mayonnaise? But it also enhances what it goes with. It adds moisture, creaminess. It's delicious. I don't know that you want to eat a spoonful of it, but you wouldn't eat a spoonful of the mustard and ketchup either. I'm all about it. I think it also is more common. Like some people like mustard, some people like ketchup. Mayonnaise.
All right. Victor.
As a kid, I used to love mustard. I used to love ketchup and hated mustard, and now I'm the other way around because I'm a grown-up. The ketchup is for children. Mayonnaise is really horribly bad for you, and it's also disgusting. It goes bad. Mustard does not. Mustard is the healthiest of these condiments, and it's also the only one that you can come in different varieties naturally. You can get brown mustard, you can get yellow mustard, and it adds that little bit of zest, a little bit of spice, if you will, to your food in a way that is frankly guilt-free because it's not as fattening or unhealthy.
All right. Oh, 1. Okay, Lee.
Okay, well, I'm going to go with the middle mainstay. It's called ketchup, and it not only has ketchup stood the test of time for years and years, even as a kid. And as you get older, it's started to evolve now. Now there's more ketchup. You can add jalapenos to it. It tastes great with. You can add onions with it. It tastes great. You can add any type of vegetable with it, and it actually tastes great once you blend it in. You can put peppers in it. You can put ghost peppers in it, and it still tastes really good. And it actually blends with it, and unlike some other parts.
All right. So Dan, this is your 30 seconds to argue for whatever you want. You can bash the other two or go in on mayonnaise.
Okay, well, I wasn't asked what the most healthy condiment was, so granted. But the fact that it goes bad, how is that a negativity? Put it in the damn fridge. Come on. I challenge you to eat like mustard left out forever. But I just love the flavor of it. Mustard and ketchup are more divisive, in my opinion, than mayonnaise. Mayonnaise is the foundation.
All right.
I yield my
Victor?
So the question was, which condiment is the best? So versatility of how it can be used, the flavor of it is better than everything else. It's healthier and it stays good longest. All of those things, it's checking all the boxes. So any way you look at it, it's the best.
Okay, cool. And Lee.
It stays for a while. I don't understand. It just it can go with anything. It's now starting to evolve. There's more things added to it that can make it good, and it blends with anything, any type of vegetable, any type of sweet, sour, any type of taste. It blends with it, and it makes it much better, whatever you want to put it on. That's it.
Okay, cool. Okay, so Josh, for this one, I guess we're gonna vote for which one we think is the worst argument to eliminate somebody. So I think that, So, or you can just say which two you think are the best.
It's a little mean to say worst argument.
Yeah, I know. Maybe just say the two winners, not the loser.
Yes, we're all winners here. There will be trophies at the end.
I think I know where I want to go here. Just with the thought process. I think that sadly, I think that the one that was the argument that convinced me the least. I'm sad to say that it was Lee, mainly just because I do think ketchup is a great condiment, and it is versatility. And I just wish you expanded a little bit more upon the versatility of mustard and of ketchup, because let's face it, it's the condiment that people use that people get mad at because you can put it on everything. Like I get mad when people put it on eggs, and I get mad when people put it on steak, but people want to use it for those things. Even though it's like, why are you doing that? But people will use it. I almost wish you'd gone a little bit more into that stuff instead of just the different flavors. And so that's where I land with it.
Yeah, I was working towards it, but time and you're trying to you can't get to it.
Yeah, I think such a constraint.
I think I agree with Josh. I think Dan really sold it quickly. It was just mayonnaise is the base of so much shit, so it's like a hard one to argue that. So it did come down to mustard and ketchup, and I think Lee, you focused on how ketchup has been evolving with different things added into it, the peppers and things like that. And I love a good spicy ketchup, but I think the argument didn't quite get there with the time constraint.
Ketchup is the basis of all barbecue sauce, though, so that would be a good.
That's not true.
Sure.
There's standard-based sauces, there's white. Alabama has. Wait, here's the funny thing, Kim. Here's the funny thing.
Note the name for mood
its
groups.
own barbecue sauce that's developed here in the state, and you can get it elsewhere. It is mayonnaise based, and it has brown sugar in it, and it is delicious.
I would just like to go on the record that I love all three of those condiments.
Me too.
They're all delicious.
Legitimately, I don't eat ketchup or mayonnaise at all.
Oh, really?
Funny.
I only eat mustard. That's why it's I gotta get mustard.
I do love mustard. Although I don't like yellow mustard. I like the other mustards.
I prefer a Dijon or brown mustard.
Horseradish mustard.
Oh, that stuff's good. Yeah.
All right, so that takes us next.
Lee, sadly, you have been eliminated, but I think you gave some great arguments today, and it's been great having you. And now you get to sit back, relax, and watch these two go at each other's throats in the speech.
So do I get a little X over my?
Going at each other's throats.
Oh yeah.
Does he turn into black and white?
Yeah, turn black. Or there'll be a still shot of me doing something stupid
Freeze frame.
Okay, cool. So the rest of this will be the speed round. These are still worth 2 points. So it's 2-2 right now, and then whichever of you two gets the most out of 13 first wins. So the first question for the speed round is going to be, so you're going to shout out your answer when you think of it. There's not going to be answers presented to you for this one. What is the worst film directed by Wes Craven?
My soul to take.
Scream 3?
And Victor, since you answered first, I'll have you go first. All right, you got 30 seconds.
Okay.
Go.
My Soul to Take is commonly considered the worst Wes Craven movie. In fact, Josh mentioned it earlier as a ding against Wes Craven being the best horror director. And it was the thing I was worried about somebody bringing up because it is a subpar movie. It's also one of his last movies. Fortunately, Scream 4 followed it, and that makes it a little bit better. But it stands out on his resume as a glaring shortcoming. It's just not original and not very fun. It's not memorable, and nobody cares about it. And that's why it falls short. And compared to all of his other great movies that are so seminal, this one is severely lacking.
Okay. All right, Dan, got 30 seconds. Go.
I think Scream 3 is pretty terrible, given that it's part of a great franchise. Scream 2 is stronger. Scream 4 is stronger. Scream 3 almost ended it because it was so silly compared to the rest of this. So silly, in fact, as to be too silly for a Scream movie. And comparing it to its own surroundings as a Scream movie is what made it so weak and poor. And all the tools they had, all the great actors they had available to them, and yet the product was garbage.
All right, Victor, you got 30 seconds for a rebuttal. Go.
The worst thing that a movie can be is not bad, but boring. Scream 3 may be bad, it may be subpar compared to the others, but it's not boring, especially because it's got the other Scream goodwill and the good characters to bolster and get you through. You'll remember Scream 3. You'll remember it because it compares poorly to the others. My Soul to Take, I honestly don't really remember it very much. And that's why it's the worst movie, because it's not even good enough or memorable enough or bad enough to be considered something I can think about and remember.
Time. Okay. And Dan, 30 seconds. Go.
Well, I've never seen My Soul to Take. So that's how unmemorable it is for me. I didn't even know Wes Craven directed it. So I don't think that bolsters your argument, though, because I think people actually have to see it and hate it, like people saw and hated Scream 3. So that's my argument for Scream 3 being not so great. Also, pretty late in his career. Also, how many millions of dollars were spent on that? How many great actors were wasted on it? My answer, too much and a lot.
Time. Okay, very good. Interesting. That last argument made it interesting, the argument of whether it was seen or not. I think I am narrowly going to go with Dan. Josh, what do you think?
I'm going with Dan, mainly because Professor Victor's first part of his argument was simply telling me that it was widely known to be the worst movie of his entire thing, but never addressed what made it the worst movie. Like, I wanted to know what specifically about the film was so bad.
I don't remember. I
know.
You picked it. You were so quick to pick it.
Which is what I thought because Dan had specific things that he could pull out that made Scream 3 so bad that I went Dan.
Yeah,
I did like that argument, Dan, about if nobody sees it, is it really bad? Kind of, if a tree falls kind of argument. It's like, if nobody saw it, it's one thing if everybody saw it and forgot it, but if nobody saw it,
what argument
really
do I have left if I haven't even seen the movie myself? I mean, I had nothing.
Well, that's the thing. When you said I hadn't seen it, I'm like, aren't you proving my point? You're no, you're not. Shit.
Maybe I should watch it.
No, don't.
No. You've got far more things to watch that are better.
Yeah.
All right, so it's 4-2 Dan now. So for this next one, it's a bit different. I have the magical coffee can with lots of options for horror movie characters in here. The question is, who will win in a one-on-one fight? We're gonna think like Baron Arena. If we get something in the water, there could be some water. We'll think of it as equal terms for both creatures or humans or whatever. So who wants me to choose a character first?
Yeah.
All right, Dan, you get, I hope you've seen this one. The Jotun from The Ritual.
The Ritual came out like 4 years ago on Netflix or whatever,
like,
3-4.
Yeah. It's like
yes,
pagan, but
I know this movie.
Okay.
There's like 4 different movies called The Ritual, so you have to specify which one.
That's why I had to check.
It's like the weird deer deity thing.
Yeah, deer-like thing, yeah. Like his head goes down, it looks like a human, but yeah.
And then Victor, you get Uber Jason from Jason X.
Yes!
All right.
Why did he get a Jason? That's like his favorite franchise.
Well, Dan, I'm expecting good things from you. You've got 30 seconds and go.
Well, I don't even think that Jason will swing his weapons at Jotun, because Jotun will get into Jason's pathetic mind, just like Freddy did in Freddy vs. Jason. Different movie, same character. Jason is a simpleton. He tries to beat things up. I like Jotun's ability to sort of get into your psyche. Basically, he takes you over in such a way that he's controlling your whole body. I don't even think you can attack it. But by the time it comes into you and it's attacking you.
All right,
I think
time. All right, Victor?
Dan already proved the point to me by saying Freddy versus Jason, because who won in Freddy versus Jason? It was Jason. He was able to overcome those psychological attacks. Jason is also, as Dan noted, brute force. He can chop those antlers up and he can just... And as Uber Jason, he can regenerate any damage that gets done on him. Plus, from a mental level, deep underneath the heart of Jason, what's inside of Jason is Kane Hodder, the baddest badass of all badasses. So on that note, both inside and out, Uber Jason's the best.
All right, Dan, 30 seconds.
Okay, it is false that Jason wins in Freddy vs. Jason, because at the end you see the eye wink, which clearly proves that Freddy is still manipulating that idiot. Also, the Uber Jason can't regenerate himself without the nanites. If you're not including the nanites in this argument, then Uber Jason is not invincible. He is vincible by Jotun, who will kill him.
Time. All right. Victor, 30 seconds, go.
The nanobites are an essential piece of Uber Jason. Of course, they're part of this, and so therefore he does have them. As for Freddy versus Jason, the wink that you mentioned is from Freddy's severed head in Jason's hand. hand. Definitive win by Jason, for sure. Jason can defeat the psychic attacks, he can defeat the physical attacks, and with the nanites, he is unstoppable.
With an SRM. I'm sorry.
Okay, time. Huh. Interesting. Josh, where are you going with this one?
This one's very, very, very close. This is a very battle to go for, but I have to give a little bit one. I think Professor Victor got a little bit of the edge here. This was the narrowest of margins, and Dan, you could have crippled him by saying the only reason Jason won is because Lori, the human being girl, got involved and distracted Freddy pretty direct. But regardless, which would not happen in a fair fight. But regardless, Professor Richter, by a nose.
I think I agree with that. I don't know if there's a ton that Yotun can do to Jason, whereas Jason he has his direct methods of killing. Dan, I think you were given a bit of a tough one to argue for, but I think you did a good job with it.
Is he called Yotun in that movie? I love that movie.
No, I don't think one character says the name once, but like they don't really call it a name.
Elizabeth hasn't seen it yet. I can't wait for her to watch that. It's a great movie.
Oh yeah, one of my it's like a comfort movie for me. I just throw it on sometimes.
That's weird.
It is true that I got like
that's a weird comfort.
And Yotun, you could have gone into, he does know about Jason's shortcomings, because in those guys, he knew exactly. He could have gone like, why didn't you save your mother or something, mess with them that way.
That's where the 30 seconds really hurts you.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking when you said go, he could pretend to be his mother. Yeah. Or why did you put that burlap sack over your head in the second movie? Why did you do that? And stuff like that.
I would have had a hard time defending that. I'm not gonna lie.
But 30 seconds is hard to ramble on that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So it's tied up 4-4. So this will be the deciding battle right here. So this is worth 2 points, and the final round's only worth 1 point. So this is going to be the argument right here that decides who wins this matchup. So, this is going to be fun. All right. And so this is going to be one where you're going to shout the answer out to me. What is the worst Friday the 13th film?
Jason Goes to Hell.
Oh, Jason Takes Manhattan.
All right. So Victor, you're going to go first. You got 30 seconds. Go.
Jason Goes to Hell is the worst of the Friday the 13th movies because it's not really a Jason movie. Jason's not really in it for most of the time. It's clearly a spec script that got turned into a Friday the 13th movie. It completely demolishes all of the lore and doesn't use its best asset, which is Jason, for the majority of the film. Great opening, great ending. The middle is garbage. While part 8 actually still has the same formula and it has Jason, this one does not, and that's why it's the worst.
Time. Okay, Dan, 30 seconds, go.
I'm going to quote my friend Professor Victor, who says that the place that a movie happens is very important. And so the formula is actually broken with part 8, when they're somehow going from a lake to the ocean in a boat that doesn't connect, and they're no longer at Crystal Lake anymore. So where the hell are we? We're nowhere interesting. Yes, it features Jason, but it's not in a good way. We're not even in Manhattan for most of the movie. You can't fool me. And it's just preposterous on its face, which is saying something in a Friday the 13th franchise. That movie is ridiculous.
All right, Victor, 30 seconds.
While the movie might be ridiculous, Jason Takes Manhattan does still have the greatest scene in Times Square with Jason tearing things up. So that alone makes the movie better than anything in Jason Goes to Hell. Jason Goes to Hell, all it does is remind you of better movies, not just the Friday the 13th movies, but also the Evil Dead movies by bringing in the Necronomicon. It's all constantly just letting you know it's not as good as everything else.
Time. All right, Dan, 30 seconds, go.
Well, nothing featuring the handcuff jump can be the worst movie in the franchise. The handcuff jump alone is gonna bring you up a notch. I think that the melting face bit and the crying Jason at the end of Manhattan is, again, really uncomfortable fit in the franchise. I will admit that there's an uncomfortable fit in 9 too. Like, the whole thing is uncomfortable, but only after 8 kind of destroys the franchise for me. 9 is just kind of where the garbage is falling.
Okay. I think well fought. I felt a lot of passion on both sides.
Oh, me and Victor love Friday the 13th.
There's no wrong answer here, by the way. Both of these movies are the right answer.
Yeah, if you had said 8, I'd have said 9.
Yeah, I think all of that said, I think I have to give my edge to Victor. What do you think, Josh?
This is probably the hardest debate of the entire night, the entire morning. This was because both sides were very passionate and they both had very excellent points. But yeah, I think I agree that ever so slightly, Victor gets the edge. Although I think that Part 8 is far worse.
Oh man, come on! Like Julius getting his head knocked off. Come on, I didn't even get to that.
You know what? The opening 10 minutes of Jason Goes to Hell is better than anything in Jason Goes to Manhattan.
It's true. That opening is so good. Unfortunately, it doesn't live up to that. But
no. But
I love Freddy's claw at the end too. I do. But
and I always give it credit for trying something a little different.
Dan didn't capitalize on just like it being like the lowest quality acting, cinematography, characters. Like it's just a lot of like boring. It's like the most unmemorable.
That was where my 30
You only given 30 seconds, Noah.
I was going with like ridiculous. That's where I was going with how ridiculous it is. Not just the story, the combination of crap.
Speed round can get you.
Yep.
Sweet. Well, congratulations, Victor. By a narrow margin, you are today's winner. You receive the Hamburgers and Horror title belt.
I love it.
We've gone for 3 hours now, so thank you guys so much for participating in this. If you guys need to jump off or anything, feel free to. But yeah, thank you all for joining us today, and tune in next time for the H&H debate. I don't know when it'll be yet. It'll probably be in a month or so, but we'll see.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Okay, so I'm Noah Hook. Thanks for watching Hamburgers and Horror. Stay safe out there. Okay, that's the end of the episode. We can chit chat now if you guys got to go. But yeah, thank you so much. You guys did a great job.
I had no idea how. First of all, it was fun. I expected it to be fun because I know you guys, everything was gonna be fun. I had no idea how hard it was gonna be to like talk trash about things that I like. You guys pick stuff I like or love.